This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so as I have passed on through the WhatsApp message, today we'll be discussing on Azure backup, and everyone understands or knows the importance of backup, right? So IT workers, they understand the importance of data to the organization because like we are dealing with business data. If there is any data loss due to a disk failure or manual error, or maybe because of ransomware attack or whatever reason, right? So there is a chance of data going lost. It might be known or it might be unplanned, right? So we have to be very careful, and we need to find out a way to protect the data. And this can be either kind of a regular backup, or you can replicate the data to a different location, or you can also do a kind of offsite tape-based backup or whatever. There are different mechanisms, right? So let's talk about the backup stuff. Like in the on-premises, you might have a different mechanism. What they generally do is they okay. Let me quickly compare that. Okay, so here in on-premises concept, whenever I say on-premises, I'm referring to the local data center, our own data center, not the Azure data center, right? In local data center, we generally go and take a backup to maybe a local storage on the same data center and copy to offsite. We might have a offsite backup, and offsite is generally in on-premises. It's a tape-based backup. So they will be taking a backup on the tape, and they will be moving the tape. They will physically transport the tape to another location, which might be little distance away, so that if there is a natural disaster or if there is a kind of any kind of disaster, we should be getting those tapes back to restore the operations or to restore the data to the main location and restore it. So there are a lot of challenges on this. Okay, so when you talk about the offsite backup mechanism or offsite tape solution, there are some significant challenges here because there is a transportation time, and that is very, very important. So it takes time to bring back the tape. And also we need to be very much careful about the catalog because we are storing a lot of tapes in the offsite, and we should be properly labeling them, tagging them. Otherwise you might bring the wrong tape or whatever. And also, like, there is a time in restoration, right? We have to restore the data, and we never know. So if example, like 5 years back, we might have used a different backup tool technology, or backup tool version might have been different, and now there is a mismatch. There might be mismatch in the tape or mismatch in the catalog or the metadata. So all those stuffs is very important, right? There are a lot of challenges when you talk about the on premises. I'm not talking about the cloud backup. I'm referring to the backup on how it used to work in on premises. We used to have a primary backup in the local site for immediate restore, for immediately restoring with less RPO and RTO, whereas the offsite solution is mainly for two purpose. Mainly they will be storing it in offsite for auditing purpose or some long-term solution, and the short-term solution is generally they have a backup in the local storage. And everyone understands the importance, right? So backup is definitely needed for so importance of data to the organization. Everyone understands, and it is like if there is a loss in data, it is a revenue loss for the organization, because they are going to lose a lot of data of their business related, and their customers information, or the business information that they have done in the recent past will go away, right? And that will drastically impact. There are a lot of organizations, like there was a attack in the US, right? Many years back. At that time there were a lot of organization that went bankrupt because of the entire data went lost in the twin building strike, right? So a lot of organization went into bankruptcy at that time. So data is very important, and we need to find out ways to protect and safeguard it. Even there are a lot of cyber attacks, ransomware attacks happening in the recent past, right? Even last week I was held up in a cyber attack, and without backup we might not have got back to the normalcy. It took a lot of time, but still, like either it is a it can be any hardware failure, right? It can be a disk failure, an entire storage failure, or maybe server failure, or it can be a kind of ransomware attack or a cyber attack. So it might be intentional or it might be unintentional. Maybe some people by mistake they will go and delete the production data, or when they are doing something it might have corrupted the data. So there are a lot of ways, like it can be planned and unplanned, and we need to protect all the different workload. So when I say we need to protect all the workload in the cloud primarily as a cloud ops administrator, we are protecting the virtual machines. And in some cases not just the, I mean, it might be the entire virtual machine, or it might be some cases like some of the managed disks, some of the important disks might be protected in a separate backup. And also we have got a lot of file shares that we created. We need to back up the Azure file shares. We also need to back up the SQL database in which is hosted in Azure VMs, also the Azure SQL databases, right? So it can be a PaaS offering, or it can be an infrastructure as a service offering, but still we need to take backup of this. Even there are some lot of SAP HANA systems. There are some other third-party relational database like Postgres, MySQL, Oracle. So there are a lot of different things that we need to back up, and including the Azure blobs also, right? So let's talk about how we generally back up these workloads, and what is the practice that we can follow in the cloud space, right? So it can be a little different from how it works in the on-premises. Okay, so in on-premises, it works a little different, but in the cloud, or I would say like in any cloud for that matter, we need to have a kind of thumb rule, or we need to have a kind of mechanism on how we are going to protect. So in general, most of the organization have this, especially the larger organization like the banking and the healthcare industries, because their data is very important, even though it is customer patient related data and customer transaction related data, it is very, very important. So they have a kind of 3-2-1 rule. They call it as a thumb rule for backup. What that means is, like, the rule says we should have 3 different copies of your data at any point of time. At any given point, we should have at least 3 different copies of the same data, and it should be like 2 copies in different media. It can be, one can be in disk, or another can be in tape, or another can be in maybe some kind of USB drive, or it can be on any other, it can be in a CD or DVD or whatever. So it should be in 2 different medium. Okay, so the copies of your data should be kept in 2 different medium, and always they recommend one to be offsite. In cloud, offsite means another region. Okay, it cannot be in another data center. Maybe if the entire region goes down, all the data center will be impacted mostly, right? So if the considering that, one offsite refers to another region. Here it should be in another region, but in the on-premises it can be something different. Okay, it can be a location which is maybe 50-100 kilometers away, and they might be putting it in an iron mountain, or they might be storing the tape physically in a safer location, right? So in the cloud, they are talking about 3 different copies, 2 different copies in a different medium. One copy can be in local disk, and another copy in maybe in cloud. So here they are referring to 2 different medium: disk, tape, cloud, offsite, USB, and all those things, right? So this is the general backup thumb rule that many larger organizations that they generally adopt, like they, for protecting their data, for data protection strategy, they always go with 3-to-1 rule, meaning 3 different copies of data, 2 different copies in 2 different medium, and one should be always offsite. It should not be in the same location where the impact has happened. Either it is a ransomware attack or a disaster, which is natural, or human error. You should not have the data on the same location. That is very, very important, right? So in the cloud, if you ask me like what are the data protection strategies, there are few more things that we need to consider, like encryption, and keeping it password protected, and giving right level of access, or giving minimal access to the people. So those are all there. Okay, so we need to think about access permissions, and encryption, and storing it in a safer password protected kind of thing. So all these are important, but the rule is the same. Even you can use the same rule in your on-premises. Even the protection strategies can also be very much in line. So in cloud, they provide something called Vault. Okay, Vault is where we generally go and store all the data. Okay, so Vault is the name. Okay, let me just capture it here. 1 second. Just give me a second. Just moving some screens here. Sorry. Okay, sorry, I'm back here. So vault is generally the medium or the storage location for backup. Okay. So ideally, what they generally do is the vault might be the front end for you, but on the back end, it is always the object storage. Either it is AWS or Azure or whatever. On the back end, they will be using Amazon S3 or in the cloud Azure side where they'll be using Azure Blob. So object storage is where the backups will be stored, but in the front, it is called as vault. Vault is the location where we go and preserve our backup, whatever the backup we take, either for your other cloud data or maybe within Azure. So all those data, it gets stored in Vault. So Vault is the storage entity or storage location for your backup contents. Okay, storage entity that houses backup data, in other words. Okay. So what we generally take backup in most of the cases, we go and take system state backup. System state backup, it also covers Active Directory, some kind of registry information, some kind of configuration files, and so on, right? So there are some 5 different things or 6 different things part of your system state. And in some cases, we might be going and taking only the configuration information to restore some of the application or some of the services, or in some cases we might go and take the entire image or entire virtual machine, or we might go and take a specific disk or volume, right? There are variety of ways we can go and take backup. We might be going and taking the specific blobs or specific file shares. There are different ways to protect different workloads. There are many workloads. We can also go and take just the databases. We can just go and take just your shared folder alone. So there are a lot of different things. So recovery services vault or backup vault, it makes it easy to organize your backup data. See, we are taking backup of different workload, different data, and we need to have a mechanism to organize it properly. And in order to organize that, Microsoft has given, actually it is only one solution, but they are trying to they initially tried to have 2 different solutions. So one is Azure Backup Vault, which is primarily, both of them are vault. Okay, so Azure Backup Vault was primarily intended for housing only the backup or storing only the backup, and also they had Azure Recovery Services Vault, which is mainly for site recovery purpose or mainly for replication purpose. Okay, but that can also hold your backup data. Okay, so there are 2 different vault in which you can store backup. So in the first one is mainly for backup tool to store the backup data, whereas the second one, it can also be used for backup tool to store backup data, as well as for replication. If you're replicating from on-premises from other cloud or whatever, the replicated data can also be stored in recovery services vault. See, why we are doing replication? In order to duplicate the data, in order to have one more copy of the data. That is also a backup protection or data protection strategy, right? So we generally have 2 different vault, and one of them might be deprecated, but I mean, they might deprecate in the near future. But as of now, we need to kind of understand that there are 2 different vault. One is Azure Backup Vault, and the other one is Azure Recovery Services Vault. Both of them are data sources for your what do you call backup data. Okay, so clear so far? So vault is an entity where you go and store the backups and the restore point. And there are 2 different vault solution. The backup vault is currently used for most of the, I would say I'll just classify few, but it's not explicit or it's not complete list. Blobs, disks, databases, and all those things. Generally, we put it into Azure Backup Vault. Whereas here we store all the VMs, we store all the SQL in Azure VM, not the Azure databases. If you have a SQL database within Azure VM, Azure files, SAP HANA data, maybe your on-premises agent-based backup data. So all these things are getting stored in the recovery services vault. We'll see these in practical, but for now, just understand that there are 2 locations or 2 vault where we can go and store the backup content. Okay, and also the replicated content. So recovery services vault is mainly for replicated items or replicated contents and the backup contents. Okay, but this one is primarily for backup contents only. Okay, so let's go and do one thing. Let's go and see how these things works. And as I told you, let's keep this aside. Maybe we'll compare it a little later. Okay, let's first cover the Azure Recovery Services Vault. Okay, let's go to cloud here. Sorry, in Azure platform. I'll go and check for the vault. So you can see that there are two different vault, backup vault and recovery services vault. Let's explore the backup vault first. So backup vault is mainly for the data protection strategy. If you want to continue your business in case of any unexpected or there cannot be expected event, but if like expected means definitely hardware will fail, any IT component will fail. That is the expected thing, right? We need to plan accordingly, or we should be prepared that your disk might fail one day or your server might fail one day. Anything can go in failure, right? Or sorry, anything can fail at any given point of time. So IT components or electronic component, they are prone to failures. So we need to kind of have a data protection strategy. And in order to protect your data, we go and store the data in Azure Backup Vault, which is a kind of secure storage, secure storage environment where we can go and preserve it. I'm going to create a backup vault now. So I will say this is, I'll just give it a name. Okay, so I'll just say backup RG1. I'll give it a name like Saturday. I'll say March, Saturday, backup vault 1. Okay, and it is asking me, okay, it says the letter. Okay. So it's because of the hyphen. It cannot have hyphen and all. Okay, the error might be a little different, but yeah, it doesn't accept any hyphen in between. Okay, so it is asking me for backup storage redundancy. And during the storage class, last class we discussed about storage, right? And in the storage class, we are talking about redundancy option. What were the redundancy options we had in storage? Anyone remember? What were the redundancy options? What kind of redundant storage options we had? Guys, am I
In
audible?
a disk, we have used a redundancy option.
Yeah, yeah. So do you guys remember LRS, ZRS, GRS, RAGRS? So local redundant storage, zone redundant storage, and all those things, right? Geo redundant storage. So we had those different redundant options. Okay, please practice. Okay, so you will remember. Sorry, you will forget if you don't go and look at these options frequently. Okay, so there are only two options that are applicable for backup. Either you can preserve your data locally, or if you want to have your data put into different geographical region, then they give you globally redundant. As I told you, it doesn't make big sense or much sense to protect your data in multiple availability zone and other things. It's better to have the data locally in that particular region or in another region. That's the way you should think about backup data. So if you want an offsite backup in another region, you have to go for global redundant storage, or you can put it into your local redundant storage. With redundancy options in cloud or in backup, these are the two options that are available. And very important, you cannot change the protection strategy. You have to kind of create another what do you call another vault and start backing up your data. If you want to change the redundancy option, you cannot change the redundancy option after the backups have started. Maybe I think until the backup has triggered, there are options to go and change the redundancy type, but you don't have option after the protected items is into the vault. Meaning after one protected item is has started storing its data into your vault, you cannot change it between the LRS and the GRS. You can go and create one more vault in another category and you can put it there. Is there a question? Okay, let me mute the line. Okay, so you always need to think about these two in a specific aspect. If you want to have more durability, more redundancy, you can go for globally redundant. So generally, you know, right? It's a trade-off between how much cost you want to spend for your data, how critical is your business data. So based on the data criticality, data importance, I would say, you can go and choose how you want to protect your data, how you want to store your data in either in one option or one location or in multiple location. Okay, it's very simple. Okay, so backup vault is a storage entity that stores the data or houses the data, and it also helps you to organize the data. That is again important, right? It's not just for storing, it also helps you to organize your backup very properly. You can create different structure and organize your data there. Okay, so let's go and create it. I'll go and select a LRS option. As I told you, we cannot change this later. You have to change it at the time of creation. Okay, by default, this is one more thing you need to understand. It will go and create a service account in your on-premises also. Generally, you when I go and do a backup, we don't use the default account, or we don't use any user account which is which is used by a particular individual, right? Generally, we need to have a separate service account for backup activity or for the purpose of doing the backup. So we call it as managed identity in cloud. So generally, like generally a system account will get created or a service account will get created to perform the backups. Okay, so that is something which will automatically create. We don't have to worry about it. I'll show you how where exactly it gets stored and created. But it is Microsoft managed identity. That's the reason it says system assigned managed identity. Managed means Microsoft manages that particular account, service account. It automatically changes the password or credential very frequently in a rotating manner. So we don't have to worry about that. It's a managed backup solution. So whatever we are seeing here, it's a managed backup. Okay, so managed backup solution. Okay, let's go to the resource. Let's see, let's explore the options. So if I go and look at here, there are two different options in general. Okay, so let's talk about the backup vault here first. I know we are
Stan,
getting
just a
more into,
quick
yeah, go
question.
ahead, go ahead. Yeah, no problem. Go ahead, ask your
You
question.
said the redundancy option cannot be changed
Yeah,
after creating the vault, right? So is it like after creating the vault account that cannot be changed, or during the backup cycle that cannot be changed?
okay. So there are two things, right? First thing is we are creating the vault. Create vault is fine. Okay, and the next step is we are going to store the backup data into the vault, right? This particular procedure is called protection, data protection, or we are just see if you read the definition carefully or read the statement carefully. It says the cost of professional tendency storage redundancy cannot be changed after protected items into the vault, meaning after one backup content is already stored into the vault, you don't have privileges to convert it. Okay, it's up to until the time where we go and protect a particular item. See, item here refers to it can be a VM backup or it can be a file share backup. Once one backup is stored into that particular vault, you don't get the option to change it. So but when after you create, immediately you might have option to modify it, but it's like very simple. Okay, so understand that you cannot change it. If you want to have a different redundant type, you have to go and create a separate backup vault and reconfigure the backup. And always remember, one item can be protected directly into one vault. You cannot have two different vaults attached to a particular virtual machine or attached to a particular file share. You can have only one-to-one mapping. So you cannot have you have to remove the older connection or older backup link and then create one more link and start storing the data. Okay, so if for answer your question, Ganesh, after
Mhm.
protected items are into the vault, you cannot change it. It's the second step, in fact. But
Got it.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so coming, no problem. So coming back here, so let's see what are the different things, what are the different workload we can back up using this one. So if you look at here, these are the only 3 things that we can back up using Azure Backup Vault. That's what I told you in the at the beginning also, right? There are only 3 things that generally gets backed up into Azure Backup Vault: blobs, disks, and Postgres databases. Okay, so this is the workload types in Backup Vault. So, and specifically, it should be Postgres databases only. Okay, the other databases will be stored in Azure Recovery Services Vault. So if I want to go and take some Azure disk backup, I can go and say disk backup, and it is asking me where exactly I'm going to store it, which vault, and you can select the vault name here. And see, this is going to take a snapshot and store the snapshot for OS and our data disk. It will be for the current running VM. Okay, so let me put it. I'm not sure if I have got some data already in there. I mean, VMs already in there, but let me try. Okay, it is asking me for backup policy. So policy everyone knows, right? So policy means we need to agree with the customer, agree with the application owner, understand the application usage. Maybe if the application usage is very high from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., based on that, we need to kind of prepare a schedule for each of the workload, for each of the application. So schedule means when you want to trigger the backup. When you trigger the backup, the usage of the application or usage of the server should be minimal. Okay, so to avoid any kind of performance impact or any kind of slowness, so you need to kind of schedule the backup during the non-business hours. Okay, so schedule during off business hours for your application. So it can be different from application to application. Some application might be heavily used in the morning time, some might be in the evening time. So some application it might be used only during the weekends or month end, maybe during the year end financial processing. So you need to understand the application use case, application usage, and you need to prepare a schedule for that particular workload. It cannot be the same for every workload. So when you go and create a schedule, it will ask the time when you want to kind of back up. And the next thing, it is the retention. How long you want to store the data, to preserve the data. Some application owners like from the banking sector, from the healthcare center sector, they will say 20 years, 30 years, 40 years kind of thing. But if you are talking about manufacturing or some industry, they might have 10 years, 15 years retention. Some might have 7 years. In the on-premises, mostly most of the backup technologies or the backup tools are restricted to 7 years, most of the tools. Okay, but here in the cloud, you can go beyond that. You can have 20 years, 40 years, and more than that. So retention is how long or how far they want to preserve the data. So it might be for auditing purpose, or it might be for any kind of emergency restoration, because like many people might come and ask for the data after 10 years or even after many years, right? So you have to have a retention based on your business requirement or business conditions. Okay, the next one is what is the other one? Generally we go and do a schedule and retention, and the frequency is another thing. Okay, frequency meaning how frequent you want to take backup. That is something you can understand based on your RPO RTO. See, when I say RPO RTO, there are two different important things in a backup or in a replication. There are two important things. You have a 24-hour day, right? You have 24 hours in a day, and some application they might ask us to back up every thrice in a day, or regular. In most of the cases, most of the backups happens once in a day, so they, to avoid any performance impact or any kind of drastical impact, so they will be doing general backups only once in a day, that too in the off business hours. So in general, like it is 24 hours RPO or 24 hours recovery time objective might be little different, depends on how much data we are talking about. Recovery point objective. So I'll just cover one part first, and then I'll go on to the other. Recovery point objective. Meaning, recovery point objective is to which point you can recover to, or to which point you can restore your system to. For example, if you have taken backup on previous day 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. or midnight, then you can restore your data to that previous day content. See, for example, the next day, if your data, I mean, if your server crashed at 4 p.m. or morning 2 a.m. or whatever time on the next day, if it fails, you can roll back or you can restore the contents from the previous day backup. So which means in general, we are agreeing to 24 hours backup. Every 24 hours, the backup will happen. So your RPO in this case is 24 hours for a daily regular frequency backup, or only once a day backup has a frequency of every 24 hours, which means the RPO is also 24 hours in that case. But if you are taking 3 backups in a day, then that means you are taking 3 backups in a day. 24 hours divided by 3, it is like 8 hours. In an 8 hours each frequency, I mean every 8 hours you are taking backup. So here the RPO is 8 hours, because you can restore if the backup, if the server fails at this point of time, then automatically you will have the backup that can be restored to the previous state, which I mean previous backup, which was taken less than 8 hours. So here the RPO is 8 hours. So this is RPO means to which point you can recover your system, the point you can roll back. That is what recovery point objective is. Recovery time objective is a little different. I'll come to that point a little later. That is how much time it takes to restore the data. Okay, so just one second. Let me take some water here. Sorry, I was speaking on mute. Okay, so here, okay, so recovery point objective is called RPO. RPO is again given by the business. The application owner has to say how frequently we have to take backup, whether we have to take backup once in a day or thrice in a day, or they need backup every minute. It is a critical database. So the protection strategy might differ, and for each of the application, based on the frequency of changes that is happening, you might have also have to increase the frequency of backup. Okay, so we'll come to the different frequency for different workload. But for now, when we talk about policy is combination of schedule plus frequency plus retention. These are the 3 things that we generally go and configure in a particular backup policy. Okay, so here I'll just go and do that. I'll just give it a name. Maybe I'll call it as daily backup. Okay, so next, here it is going to ask the schedule, how frequently, whether I want to do a hourly backup or daily backup. So okay, but let's limit it to what we have there. Okay, so hourly or daily or whatever. So I'm going to take a daily backup here. That means it will take every 24 hours. So it is asking like what time we are going to do it. I'll say after business hours, maybe 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. or whatever. So always remember that, remember about the time zone, the time zone of where exactly, I mean, which location we are backing up. So in the past, I've seen a lot of challenges with this time zone. Okay, that is a very important thing. Whenever there is a kind of daylight savings changes in some of the European and US locations, I have seen that backups will behave a little different because of the time zone change. Machines will have the times changed, and the backup tools will find difficulties to kind of align with the new daylight savings. So we should be extra cautious when there is a daylight savings that is getting announced. We should make sure that our backups are happening, or backups are happening as per the daylight savings changes, because sometimes I have seen backups will get preponed. In some locations, daylight savings are not just 1 hour. In some countries, it might be 2 hours also in some of the specific countries. Okay, so daylight savings, whenever there is an announcement, you need to go and quickly check the backup schedule, whether it is as per the initial I mean the statement of work, or whether it is something little different. Okay, so our time zone is very, very important when it comes to backup, and especially in the countries where the daylight savings changes, you have to go and verify that. Okay, by default, you can see that there is a operational the retention is by default 7 days, and you can just, let me just, for checking purpose, I'm just giving some numbers here. It can be up to 180 days. Okay, so the data store backup, where you are creating the backup vault. By default, it can be from 1 to 180 days. So if you are practicing, just give it the minimum, whatever minimum possible. Okay, don't store it for longer time and reduce your cost, which you can use for practicing. Okay. Okay, I'll store it only for 1 day. Okay, let me check here. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, I'm just going to create the backup policy here. So daily backups will happen at 10 UTC. See, for example, if you are in Central, it will be plus 6 hours. If you are in India, it might be plus 5:30, right? So be careful about that on the policy. Now it is asking for the data sources. What are the different data sources you are going to um, backup now? See, I can see only one VM is there, which is East US Virtual Machine 001, and that too I have got only one disk that is there. Okay, I'll just add that here. Okay, when I go and add that, it is asking for validation. It is asking for some permission. Whatever service account that has got created, it needs to get some permission here. So what you can do is you can go and okay, let's see, let's validate whether it has got permission. No, it is not having permission. So you can go and assign permissions to that specific resource or resource group or subscription. So when you go and add the resource, you get 3 options to assign permissions. Whether you can go and assign permission to the entire subscription to take backup, or you can just give permission only to the resource group where the application resources are stored, or you can also specifically give permission only for the disk or only for the VM or only for that workload. So here I can just go and give permission only for the resource. Okay, for now. Okay, I don't want to give too many permissions. It is always good to go with least privileges model or least permission approach, so that you don't give too much of permissions. Okay, I'm just giving permission for the backup tool or the backup vault to access the East US virtual machine OS disk and take backup of that. Okay, so now once the backup readiness is successful, we can revalidate it. Okay, it will take 1 or 2 minutes to go and add the permissions. We are going and assigning the permission, role assignment. Role assignment means the backup tool has created a service account. That service account is going and getting permissions on that particular disk to take backup. Now it is done. I can just go and say revalidate. It will automatically wait for permissions every 1 minute. Okay, but we can skip that. Okay, it's revalidating anyways. Okay, let's wait for that. Okay. Okay, any questions from anyone so far? Okay, I'll take that as no. Let's move on. Okay, role assignment complete. It's validating. It should pass now. Okay, so while that is passing,
Stan, one question.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, here you are backing up with a subscription level, right?
No, I mean, I'm going to take only the resource here, the OS virtual, I mean, the OS disk,
Okay.
not the entire subscription. You can do it. You get option to get permission or enable permission at the subscription level or at the resource group level or resource level. It depends on case to case. Some people will go and assign permission to the entire resource group where they want to take multiple volumes or multiple workload. They will give at the resource group level. Sometimes they might give to the subscription to minimize the time taken to give permissions one by one. Okay, so if you give entire subscription, this backup vault can go and take backup of any workload in that particular entire subscription. So you can decide based on your design, but for now you have option to do at any of these 3 levels. Okay, I'm
Okay.
just
So
going to
now,
take yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead, go ahead.
normally people will preferring to do it from the resource group level, right? Or in
Correct.
the
Mostly,
like
yeah.
server
Mostly,
level.
yeah. Mostly it is resource group if the resource group is intended for only specific applications. But if the resource group is having the entire environment or multiple application, then it is good practice or best practice to take at the resource level.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. So now we have just configured backup for one of the category, which is Azure Disk Backup, right? Azure Disk Backup is what we have triggered now. Let's complete that. So I was about to talk about recovery time objective. These are the two important things when we talk about backup or recovery or whatever, right? RPO and RTO. RTO depends on how much time taken to recover from disaster. See, for example, if you had a disaster somewhere around this time, from maybe like around let's say 6 p.m. How much time we are taking to recover the backup? Oh, sorry, to recover from the disaster. So the disaster has happened. We have started the recovery operation or restore operation from 6 p.m. Up to what time we are going to how much time we are going to take to recover the system. Maybe if in general I can give you some hint there, but it cannot be the same for all the workload. Generally you can go and check how much time it takes for backup. Generally the restoration time is double the time of backup. Restoration time is double the time of backup. If your backup is running for 4 hours, it might take 8 hours to restore. That's what I'm conveying here. Okay, so you can check workload to workload how much time it is taking on a historical basis, so that you can go and modify the SLA or modify the SOW document to accommodate the size of the workload. Because one server may be 1 terabyte, another server might be 100 GB, another server might be 500 GB. So yeah, everything cannot be restored in the same time or same duration. So it is the time that it takes for a particular operation to be restored or particular system to be recovered. Okay, time taken to
Stan,
recover the service. Yeah,
yeah, Stan Bala here. So one
yeah.
small clarification. So the backup that it is taking, it's a kind of snapshot backup or file level backup first of all. So
Mhm.
and the second thing is like even if it is taking file level backup also, it is supposed to be incremental or differential, right? It is not supposed to be taking a entire backup on every day, right?
Mhm. Okay, so I'll okay, so most of the things maybe I should learn from you, but anyway, I'll definitely explain about the type of backup. Okay, whether we are taking incremental or differential, I'll explain that shortly, because different workload we take
No, no,
different
no. The question, the
category.
reason that we are, the
Mm,
reason that I'm asking is you mentioned
yeah.
the restoration process will take double the time of the
Okay.
time taken for backup, right? So I just want
Right.
to understand like what kind of
Oh,
mechanism that they
okay,
are
okay.
following in taking up the
So
backup.
in general, except of database, it is always incremental backup. Okay, but again, it's not the same way that how we do in the on-premises. See, on-premises, we go and understand the full backup, and then the incremental backup, differential backup, and so on, right? So we have different concepts in on-premises, and also we have for database, we have transaction log backup and so on. Let me see if I have the slide open. Maybe I'll just quickly answer your question, but I'll definitely cover. It is a little different from the workloads what we have in the cloud. It's not the same. Okay, let me see if I have any slides which
I mean,
talks
if it
about
is
that.
Stan, if it is
Yeah,
deviated from the topic, then we will cover it later. But we can stick with
sure,
the
sure.
topic
I'll,
because
I'll
yeah,
yeah, yeah, I'll definitely explain that shortly. Okay, there is a couple of slides which talks about it. Okay, here it is. Okay, so here we have full differential incremental, right? So I'll explain it. Okay, I'll come to that point. But yeah, so mostly like it is incremental for most of the workload except of the database. Okay, for a database, we might have to understand what are the different options, because database needs more frequent backup, right? It can be differential log backup, or there are few more options that are available. But I mean, maybe Bala, like I know you are coming from the backup engineering team, so you might have a lot of general insights. I'll give you some time later. You can give some inputs for the team here. Okay, so
yeah, sure,
uh,
Stan, understandable.
yeah, yeah. So recovery time backup objective, sorry, recovery point objective and recovery time objective. These are the two important things that we need to understand from the service level objective point or SLO level or the operational level agreement. We should understand for each and every workload, the time taken might be little different. So operations level agreement meaning how much operations team has agreed to recover. So if the time that we are taking is beyond that particular operational level agreement, we might be penalized or like we might be put into penalty situation. So a lot of things has to be considered. Okay, so it depends on the size, it depends on the backup type, as Bala highlighted. If it is like multiple incremental, we might have to do it in a different way. If it is differential, the restoration process is a little different, and it also depends on how much bandwidth we have or where exactly we are restoring, whether we are restoring in the same location. Also in the cloud, one more thing comes into place, because it is a managed backup. It is, there are a lot of queues might be there, okay, for restoration request. Maybe because we are using a shared technology here, you are using, not like, unlike your on premises you'll have a backup server which is dedicated to your data center or your organization. So whatever the restoration queue, you know what are all things which are pending there. But in the cloud, it's a managed backup solution. So multiple, it's a multi-tenant model, meaning multiple tenants might have placed a restoration request, so your request might have been waiting on a queue also. So it depends on the queue as well, what time you are restoring. If it is a very big situation, for example, multiple vendors are impacted due to a disaster in the cloud, so everyone might have placed a restore request, right? So the time taken to recover, it might differ. So there are some pros and cons. Okay, in the cloud, a lot of advantages are there. You can directly go and start taking the backup, unlike your on premises. In your on premises, you have a lot of different things to do, right? You have to go and put together a media server where you connect the tape libraries and other things. You go and create a backup server where you go and configure all the workload and stuff. You have to go and install the OS and prepare the disks and all those things for both of the media and backup server. And you have to make sure that it is safe. Even the catalogs and all those things has to be backed up from your backup. So all these complexities are there in the on premises, but still it gives you a lot of advantages, because you have complete control on how many backups are running, how many restore jobs are running, and so on, right? And here we need to do some manual physical connections also. You have to connect to your SAN storage or your tape drives. Tape drives are generally connected locally to the system using your SCSI cable, but in general, like you need to do a lot of physical setup in your on-premises traditional data center. But in the cloud, you don't do all those things. You don't go and set up a separate media server or backup server. You start going, I mean, you've started taking backups here. See, if you look at the screen here, we have already triggered something, right? We have went ahead and did something for one of our workload. If I go to the backup jobs, so did we do anything so far? No, right? So let me see. So there are a couple of things which you need to understand. There is a scheduled backup, there is a on-demand backup. Scheduled backup, you have scheduled it for what? 10 p.m., right? So that is the scheduled backup. So we have a scheduled backup means it will be scheduled daily, weekly, or whatever, like the frequency. Okay, and during the off business hours, we'll go and schedule it. But you can also go and do an on-demand backup. Meaning, see, for example, some application team will come to you and say that they are going to make some changes in their application, or if they want to make some OS configuration or some configuration changes, even your systems administration team, they will go and trigger a snapshot, or they will go and trigger a backup, right? On demand means based on your application team requirement or for some activity, you can go and trigger a backup and make the changes, so that you have the option to go and uh, recover or restore to the previous state, right? So that is called on-demand backup. So on-demand backup, you can go and click backup here, and you can take on-demand backup anytime. Okay, so here, okay, this is again going to the vault. Let me go to the workload here. If I scroll down, I can see what are the different workloads that are there. As of now, only one disk is configured for the backup, and that too, we have configured it for 10 p.m., right? 10 p.m. UTC. So if I want to do a immediate backup, on-demand backup, I can also go and take backup now, or I can also go and change the policy to prepone the backup, or change the backup time, right? You have the option to change the policy, or you can also go and backup now. Also, if you want to look at the resource, what exact resource we are backing up and all those things, you can go and check how much size it is, and all those information can be found. And you can come back to the resource here, and I can go and do a instant backup. Instant is on demand. You can do backup now. If I click on this, it will go and trigger a backup immediately. Okay, instant backup is called on-demand backup. Okay, so always the retention settings are same like your the policy that you have defined earlier. Okay, it will be the same time you will be storing we configured it for 1 day retention, right? In general, it might be 1 day or 7 days or 180 days based on your application requirement. And I'll say backup now. So this is for the disk backup. Okay, so don't get confused with the time. So for disk backup, it is 1 days to 180 days is the retention that we have. Okay, default is 7 days for the disk-based backup. Okay, I have just triggered a on-demand backup. So you can go and look at the backup here, backup jobs. Now you can see that there is a current live backup going on in progress. This is a on-demand backup. So every any first backup will always be full backup. Okay, and the subsequent backups will be incremental backups. That is how the cloud works by default. Okay, so now we are talking about the disk-based backup. So let's see if I have got any storage accounts or any blobs. Oh, okay, we still have that whatever we created last week, I guess. See, I missed to clean up, but it is good like that. We can use it for today's class. Okay, so we have got some containers also, right? Oh, very nice. Okay, so we have got some contents to play around, which is good. Okay, so I'll just go and use that. Okay, let me go to the backup vault. Now I want to take backup of different workload. Maybe I want to take backup of Azure blobs, which is stored in Azure storage. So now it is very important that giving permission to a resource within a resource group is different. Giving permission to a storage account is a little different. Now I'm just going to give the system identity or the manage identity permission to take backup of a blob storage. Blobs is nothing but objects, right? I'm going to take objects backup, which is stored within the Azure storage now. So first backup what we saw is disk backup. Disk, right? Disk is the backend for your virtual machine. Now whatever I'm going to show now is object based backup. In cloud they call it as binary large object. It is blob backups. Okay, so binary large object. So for object backup, objects are stored where? In Azure storage account. So for Azure storage account, we need to give permission for the managed identity. That is very important. So here only operational backup will be enabled, resource. Okay. Okay, let's go and create a policy for this. Okay, this is Saturday. I'll say, sorry. Okay, doesn't accept, right? Okay, Saturday blobs backup 1. Okay, let's go and schedule the retention now. So by default, it is 30 days. Retention is default 30 days for your object storage. And you can go up to 11 months. Okay, which is okay, that's fine. I'll just give you those details. You can go up to 1 to 11 months in terms of the months actually. If you are giving by weeks, right, it will again go, okay, let's see. It can be up to 51 weeks. Okay, these are all, these data, you need not worry about it. There is no questions in the exam as of now on the supportability and all those things. I'll just try with the minimum number here. So it accepts 1 day, that is good. I'll just go and give it for 1 day so that I can delete the vault tomorrow. If I'm giving 7 days, you cannot delete the vault unless there is a retention data. See, if you are giving 7 days retention, until 7 days, you have no option to go and clean it up. So meaning you cannot delete the vault until 7 days. So you have to be very careful. Okay, that is the reason I'm giving only 1 day here. So until you have a data which is having retention of 7 days or 1 month or 10 months by mistake, if you have done that, there is no way to clean up that. You have to wait until that expiration happen. So until the retention data expires, you cannot clean up the backup vault or the recovery services vault. You have to be very careful there. Okay, so let me go and take it up, create. So 11 months is very good amount of time. See, compared to disk backup can be stored only up to how many days? Only 3 months, 180 days. But here you can store up to 11 months, the object backup. Okay, now it is going to ask for permission. It is asking me which storage account I want to backup, which one we want to backup. I'll just go with something which is having less data instead of having too many things. I'll just use this one. Okay, it has got very less data. Okay, perfect. I'll go with GRS001. Okay, now we have to assign permission for the storage account. So one storage account can be mapped to only one vault. This is the same for everything. Okay, there can be only one-to-one mapping. Vault to a resource or vault to a storage account, it's the same thing. Okay, you cannot protect the same storage account to two different vault. Okay, 1 second, guys. The temperature is rising. Okay, back here. Okay, any questions
So,
from anyone so far? Go ahead. Yeah, please.
so you're saying we cannot back up two different resources from two different vaults. That's what you mean.
No, I did not mean that. One-to-one mapping doesn't mean two-to-two mapping, right? So you are talking about two objects into resource group. Okay. See, that the tie-up is done at what level? We are tying the vault and storage account. In the previous case, we were tying the vault and the three different options, right? Subscription, um, resource group, and resources. We are connecting or we are linking two different entities here. So if you can go and link one storage account with one vault, meaning whatever objects which are stored in this storage account, it has to be stored in this vault only. You cannot go and link the storage account to another vault, vault 2. Maybe like vault 1 can be linked to storage 1, and
Okay.
similarly, yeah.
Just the storage account, not the resource. So the one single resource can be backed up using two different vault. Is it right?
Come again?
So one resource can be backed up using two different vault, right?
No.
Oh, okay. So that was the question actually.
Yeah.
So one resource can be backed up using in one vault account only, right?
Yeah, see, for example, if you have different technology, it might support, and there is an archive bit and all those things which comes into discussion. The metadata will get conflict, all those things. But if you are different using different technology, then that is fine. But if you are using Azure backup technology or Azure backup vault, then you can have only one one-to-one mapping. See, for example, if you have some Symantec or some third-party thing, you can just connect it and take backup as a separate one more content. But you cannot have one object taken backup into backup vault 1 and backup vault 2. That is not feasible. Okay, so let's see. Just do a kind of use case, right? So the more you do, the more you understand, right? But the point what I need to convey, I've conveyed here. It is like one-to-one mapping only. See, that's where these things gets interesting, right? Even though we are not from the backup skill set or backup, I mean, we might not have played a backup engineer role, but in the cloud, you get options or opportunity to work on every technology, backup and storage, all these things. That's where cloud becomes very interesting. And on the other side, even our responsibilities is wide, or like it's like scattered across different technologies from on-premises. So let's see, let's go and check this. So now the backup resources are ready for backup. I can just go and configure the backup. Oh, I do not see like what time I have triggered it, but anyways, we can always go and trigger an on-demand backup. So if you look at
I
here, you
think,
will see the dashboard. Yeah.
yeah, I think we already did the immediate backup, right? Backup, no, we have
That is
already
for the disk.
completed.
Okay, so we are talking about multiple things here. Just now, I mean, I completed the Azure disk concept. Now we are looking at Azure blobs, which is the next topic here. So earlier we were talking about Azure disk backup, OS disk or data disk that can be backed up using Azure Backup Vault. Now we are talking about Azure blob backup. Blobs are different, disks are different. Blobs are objects, binary large objects. Okay, so earlier we did an on-demand backup for the disk actually, the East US VM disk. Now we are taking backup of a content that is stored in your storage account. We are taking backup of the storage account now, not the disk. So we are going to take backup of these objects, the containers here. This particular container will be configured for backup and we'll be taking backup of that. Still confusing? No, right?
No, clear. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
thanks.
So here on-demand backup is now completed for the disk. Okay, I can just go and restore the data which we have taken backup. So I can just click on the three dots here, and I'll get the option to go and restore now, because we have already done a protection. So after this protection is configured, you have no ways to change the storage vault. So this is what I was referring to, protecting items. So once some protection is already configured, then you cannot go and change anything on the settings, or what you call the redundancy type which you asked, right? You have no option to edit it. Okay, so coming back here, so let's go and trigger a blob backup. Okay, let's give it a minute. Let's wait for some time. Okay, this is all completed. The on-demand is completed now for the OS disk. Now let's go and look at the other instance. So, okay, this is only available now. Let's wait for some time. You can go and filter it here. Okay, if you want to look at the blobs, you can just go and change it. Okay, so now you can see the storage account, which we have protected. We have configured the protection. We have not taken any backup as of now. So I can go and take a on-demand backup now. Okay, oh, it's already done. Okay, good. So its protection is configured. Let's go and check that. So what I will do is I'll go and check. Okay, the protection is configured and the backup is already there. Okay, so you can see the restore points here, just to make sure you have a backup. Let's give it a minute.
Stan,
Yeah.
so not sure that is a valid question. So we do have versioning, right, in blob storage already. So in what scenario backup will be very much maybe for long-term restorations kind of thing?
Yeah.
Because
Sure. See, every question is a good question, Satish. Okay, never hesitate. That's what I usually tell to people. Okay, versioning, snapshot, backup. These are all stuffs which can complement each other. Meaning, see, for example, if someone is making a change in an application code, or if someone has made some changes to a particular file, or someone has made some changes to a content. Okay, so for them, they should have an easier way to roll back to the previous code, or they should have option to roll back to the previous infrastructure as a code or whatever, right? See, people are now working in a DevOps agile practice. They cannot go and ask a backup team to come and restore. They will take their own time, because they have their own queue that is lined up. So they might be responsible for taking backups, or they might be working on something else. They will restore only in 3 hours or 5 hours, or maybe next day only, something like that, right? So you cannot go and rely upon backup team for everything. So versioning helps you for at the each of the object level, or if you want to just do a quick restore on your own, you can do it. Snapshot, it's again a point in time backup for your it can be used for the entire VM, or you can use it for the entire container, or you can use it for entire file, again for restoring purpose to the previous state. Okay, certain things like can complement each other. So enabling versioning and snapshot will reduce the time and effort needed by the backup team, because backup team has their own procedural way of restoring things and stuff, right? So yeah, it can, these are all things which complements each other with the latest innovation or enhancements, but they are not the same. Okay, so definitely we cannot say that since I've enabled versioning, I need not have a backup. Backup is definitely needed. Okay, so because you are storing it for a specific duration, we are taking it on a specific off business hours, but versioning is uh, taking capture of every version. You are just, if whenever you go and make modification into that file, it creates a new version, right? So versioning is purely for quick rollback of a particular content or a particular file. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. So if you look at here, I've taken a backup at 10:08 49 a.m. So now I can just go and select restore here. I can just see under the web app. I'll just try to delete some files here. Okay, I'll just delete the test object replication. Let me try to restore. So when I go and restore the content, okay, restore the blob storage. Okay, restore Azure blobs. Okay, I have to go and select the restore point, to which point I want to restore, whether I want to restore to the yesterday's backup or last month backup or whatever. I have to go and select the specific date and the specific time of backup which you have taken. Okay, so let me just go and click the green icon here. Okay, and select that. And it's like going to the restoration parameter. It gives us three options. Okay, so in general, if you are coming from a backup team, okay, they generally don't get they don't get I mean, they don't restore it on the same location. It's to avoid conflict, right? See, some people will say, okay, we placed a wrong request and you might have to do it. As a general best practice, the backup team, they generally go and create some specific folders or content. They will call it as restored or something like the date, time, like whatever they will format that they have, they will follow that format and they will restore that data, right? So that is the general practice. They will not go and overwrite the data as a best practice. Overwrite the data from backup, it's a very very rare thing, because like only when the application owner want to completely restore the system to the previous state, we might go and overwrite it, but otherwise the blobs will be okay. So this is very very important in the cloud. Here it's little different. The blob storage will go and will be restored to the same storage account and may result in being overwritten. Very very important, right? So you have to convey that, so that they don't get into surprise. So you have option to restore all the blobs in the storage account. Number one, you can do a complete restoration of all the objects in the storage account, or you can go and select the specific container on which you want to restore. You had containers, right? I can select the web app 3 container and I can go and restore the specific container, or I can also restore some specific 10 prefixes or 10 file path, meaning you can just go and do specific file path also. Okay, let's validate the specific container now. Web app 3. Web app 3 is a container within that, right? If you go here, this is one of the container within that particular storage account. So you can go and do the entire, all the blobs, all the objects in a specific storage account, or you can go and select specific containers also. Now it is validated. I can click on next and I can go and restore. So now the data will be restored for that entire web app 3. You can also go and select the individual file path also. So there are three options. Okay, similarly, while this is happening, I'll show you how to do a disk restore. Okay, go to the backup instances, go and filter for the disk, and I can select the specific disk and I can also restore that. So when I go and do a restoration of a disk, it gives me option to select the restore point again. I can select the specific date and time. So it is showing me this restore point. I can select that, click on next. So always the first thing on the restoration is selecting the restore point. to which date or which time you want to restore, right? So you have three options in the Azure Blob Restore. Sorry. Okay, now we are restoring Azure disks. Again, the very first thing is to select the restore point to which date you want to restore or recover. Okay, I can just select the subscription, target resource group, and I can give it a name. I will say this is East US restored VM. So it doesn't name should not contain letters, numbers, hyphen. Okay, this is the problem with cloud. Okay, East US restored disk VM1. Okay, let's validate. So this is where it gets easier when you want to restore things. If you have given permission to the subscription level, it will be quicker. If you have given access to the resource group level, it will be much quicker, right? So that's where you can save some time, but it's not a good practice to save time. You should not compromise the security or the best practice. Okay, so let's validate and start the restore. So now I have initiated the restore for the blob, as well as I am initiating a restore for the disk now. Okay, so it says okay, okay. Let's see.
Is it because of the permission which we have given only in the resource level, not the resource group level?
Correct. That is true. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So when people were talking, like even there is one more option, right? In cloud, we have soft delete option also, which is kind of recycle bin. So accidental restore also can be done using the soft delete. So in cloud, there are a lot of different options. So, but they're all not one and the same. That is something you need to understand which scenario can be used for what. Okay, so a lot of that's in fact a good doubt to have. Okay, let me delete this. Okay, okay, what's this? User error for this backup. Okay, was the permission not present? Our target resource group does not exist. Okay, so I'm not sure. Let me go and check that. This is in which region? Okay, East US, and okay, this is discuss status reserved. Okay, it's not a shared disk. Sometimes, like if it is a shared disk, you might get such errors. Okay, you can check that. It's not a shared disk. Okay, okay, this is in this resource group. Let's try that. Oh, we have tried that only, right? Okay, so it is recommending us to go and take a Azure virtual machine backup since it is a managed disk. Okay, but let's see. Let's go and check that quickly. Okay, let's go and check the resource group. This one, access control. role assignment, DB migration. Okay, there are a lot of things. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, it still says failure. Let me try a different resource group just to be on a safer side. Sometimes it doesn't allow us to do it on the same source location. See, this is definitely like for disk, it will create a new disk in the selected resource group. Okay, it is not going to overwrite it. Okay, that's the difference between blob and disk. Okay, in blob, it will be restored on the same thing. Okay, but disk restore will create a new disk. That's what we need, right? We need to, I mean, if you want to create one more VM, or if you want to do it, like, you should have an option to go and restore it in a separate target subscription and resource group and so on. Okay, while the validation happens, we'll also go and quickly check the storage account, whether the uh, restoration happened for the entire container. So you can see that file which we deleted has got restored. Okay, even you can go and delete the complete complete container also. That will also be you'll be able to do that. And in order to verify that, you can go to the backup vault, go to the vault here, and go to the backup jobs, and you can verify whether the restoration was successful. So here, always filter down what we are checking for. We are checking for Azure blob, right? And it will show you the restore activity. So you can see that restore was successfully completed, and the time it took is 4 minutes. See, similarly, I can show you something else. Operation all disk. Okay. You can also set alerting if you want, like for any failed job or any kind of delaying. You can also go and create an alert rule so that you will be able to notified by mobile or whatever, right? So if you want to be notified in your email inbox or your distribution list, you can also go and configure it for your backup health alert. If there is a successful restore or successful backup or a failure or whatever, for each of those, you can also configure alerting. But here, let me check. Okay, so it shows the restore. Okay, and you can also go and look at the resource. Okay, so that's where you can go and check it. Okay, you guys are clear with blob, backup, and restore? I deleted this object and it got restored. So you can also look at the timestamp here. You can see that it has got restored just now at 10:17 a.m. on 12th of March. It has got restored. Clear?
Stan,
Yeah.
just a quick question.
Yeah.
While we create the vault, uh, we we were selecting either resource level, the permission, right? Resource level, resource group, or the whole subscription. So based on this, the protection will be defined. So,
Yeah.
so when we say the protection, which means so for example, I'm going to create a vault and giving the permission to the resource group level. So which means whatever the resources within the resource group will be protected once the vault is created. So which means all the resources are also in the backup. It's not right.
Yeah, so the entire container will be protected. It's not like specific objects. You are doing the protection at the container level, or sorry, at the storage account level. All the resources will be protected. Yeah, you are right. That is right.
But the policies will be based on the vault, not in particularly to the resource level.
Correct. It is at the vault policy level. I mean, whatever resource that you have created, see whatever backup load that you have created, it's at the backup instance level. See, for example, if you want to take backup of the complete blob pertaining to a particular Azure storage account, the policy is for the entire storage account and that Azure blob contents. Okay, and the other one, for example, if you're defining backup for the Azure disk, that is for the particular resource, Azure disk level. So the policy will, the
Okay.
production is configured, the policy is configured at that particular resource. So if you're talking about Azure disk, it is at the disk level. If you're talking about Azure blobs, it is at the specific storage account and the blobs.
Okay.
See, for
Right.
example, I
So
can just show you something. If I want to go and, let me quickly show that. So this is very important. Okay, so this MARA is MAR Saturday backup one. You can also go and check that in your storage account. You can also see some access permissions given to that. See, if you look at the access control here under the role assignment, you can see that the MAR whatever, somewhere it should be, see the Mars MAR SAT backup BM1, it has got contributor role, meaning it can go and restore the content. Okay, it is for the storage account backup actually. Okay, so this is the role that gets automatically added. So when I was adding something, right, it was doing this only. It was giving permission to that particular vault or particular backup technology. Yeah, go ahead with your question. Sorry.
okay, so which means the policies of all the resources inside the resource groups are uh, uh, set based on the policy which we define at the time
Mhm.
of vault creation itself. So whenever I want to change the policy of some set of resources, I can do it maybe in future if I wanted to,
Okay.
right?
Again to clarify, the
Hmm.
backup policies are created at the backup instance level, not at the vault level. See, the policy for backup in Azure storage account is different. The policy for Azure disk is different. Okay, so backup policies are attached to the backup instance, meaning it can be attached to a particular disk or it can be attached to a particular storage account and so on. It's not for the entire vault. Okay, see, if you look at here, I was explaining that, right? So for Azure disk, the retention is maximum 3 months only that is possible. It can be default 7 days and it by you can reduce it to 1 day. Similarly, for your Azure blobs, you can have up to 11 months of retention and the default is 30 days and you can reduce it to 1 day or whatever you want. So you are defining it at the
Okay,
blob level or at the disk level. It's not at the vault level.
got it.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
So, so in this case,
Hmm.
the policies to be defined on the instances level, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
when I create the vault and selected the resource group level, the permission has been given. So which means the whole resource group backed up, right? It'll
Yeah.
be in the backup, but not any set of policies until and be defined. By
Correct.
default, the
You're right. You're
resource
right. Yeah.
group is in backup, right? Okay.
Yes.
So that is
You
just
have
a, one-time backup that will be there, right?
No, see, when you create a policy, you are not just creating the retention, right? You are also giving the schedule, how frequently you want to take backup, whether you want to take a daily backup or a hourly backup or a monthly backup, you are defining the schedule, right? So you are talking about two different things. One is the on-demand backup. On-demand is different. On-demand is instant backup. You're going and triggering something you want to take immediately. That mean you might do that before a particular change activity, or you might do it before you are going and making some configuration changes. You will go and trigger a instant backup. Instant backup is on-demand backup. Okay, so we are talking about two different things here. So okay, this is instant backup. Instant backup is generally taken before activity, any changes or configurations. On scheduled is timely backup. So every evening or every week, Saturday or something like that, you go and configure a scheduled backup. So we have scheduled a backup for 10 p.m. that will run after some time. But on demand, I just want to show you backup and restore, and that's why I showed this the on
Uh,
demand instant backup and restore.
okay. Let me ask in this way.
Yeah.
So I have not defined any policy for any resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
created a vault and
Okay.
given a permission into the resource group level. So that's it. I have not defined any policies. So what will be the backup of the resource group? It's just a one-time backup. It just taken.
First thing, you need to add
Mhm.
that instance into the backup vault. Number one step is to protect those instances. Okay, whether you have scheduled it or not scheduled it, you have to protect those instances into the backup vault. First thing is to add those resources into the vault. Okay, and then after the instances are added, you can go and define policy to change the way how you want to take backup and all those things. Okay, so there are two to three different steps here. See, the policies are
No,
defined for Azure Blob Storage. Yeah.
I understand. So what is the main difference between the protection and the backup? The backup policies which we are based on the requirement we are defining, right?
Okay. No. Okay.
So
Protection
the
and the
protection
backup.
is so the protection is based on the permission. Is it right or it's not?
Is one type of data protection, right? Backup is one type of data protection. Okay, so okay, I'll come to your point again. Yeah, so here, see, maybe I'll show you one more quick example so that you will be clear with your earlier question also. So here, I'm just going to create one another vault. Okay, Saturday backup vault 2. Okay, I'm just selecting it as spoken redundant. See, when I go and create a backup vault, did I define any policy? No, right? There is no policy that is defined at the vault level. Vault is just a container to store the backup. That's it, right? And you are defining the next step. What are the instances that you want to take backup into that vault? You want to store disk, or you want to store database, or you want to store blob? Is the decision that you are taking after the first step. Okay, during the vault creation, you did not specify anything. You just specified where exactly the vault needs to be, which location, whether it is in East US or what exact location you want to store it. That is the only decision you are making along with your subscription and resource group selection. Right, and then you go and protect your different instances. Instances are workload. Workload can be a disk workload, or it can be an object workload, or it can be a database workload. Okay, and you can define the policy for each of your workload, each of your instance. Don't compare with your instance is not I'm not referring to virtual machine. Here instance is a kind of workload. It can be a disk instance, or it can be a blob instance, or it can be a database instance.
Basically
Still you
a
are having
backup instance, right?
Yeah, backup instance,
Okay.
correct. So here, see, for example, I want to protect the same storage account just for everyone's understanding, right? I want to create a backup vault 2, and I want to just go with the policy here. See, this is when I go and create a policy. Okay, when I want to protect some workload. So this is for blobs Saturday blobs policy 2. Okay, default is 30. I want to change it to 1 day. Update. Click next. So I'm defining the policy here. Okay, once the policy is defined, then comes the protection for that particular workload using that policy. Okay, now I want to select which workload I want to protect using that specific defined policy. Okay, now I'm going to add the same workload. See, that workload is no more listed. So this is what I was referring to one-to-one backup or one-to-one mapping. Sometime back we were discussing, right? I was referring to one-to-one mapping. So this vault 1, the GRS vault, is already protected with a different the GRS storage account was already protected using the vault 1. So you cannot protect it using the vault 2 again. So that's the reason you are not seeing that here. Clear?
Okay, got it.
Yeah, practice, Ganesh. You will definitely understand it, but I know like there are a lot of questions on top of your mind. Yeah.
No, the question behind is
Yeah.
ultimately it's for pricing. So
Okay.
when we
I'll come to
select
that
the
pricing little later. I'll come to that pricing little later, Ganesh. Okay. So yeah.
This question is related to this protection. So when I'm selecting the permission into subscription level, so it doesn't mean that the pricing will be high, right? Until and then I define the backup policies.
Yeah,
For each
security
and
is different,
every
cost is different, right? So see,
right. Okay.
I was talking about least privilege model, meaning give permission only to the resource which you are intended to backup. Don't give something like you can be generous hearted in something else, not in configuring things, right? So you can just do it only for the specific resource or a specific resource group. So that is the way that generally industry want to practice. Okay, they don't want you to give the storage. The vault might not protect all the resources in the entire subscription, right? It might be intended for a specific set of workload. So go and add those workload only. It might be time consuming. Okay, there are three things, right? Security, cost, and time. People think about these three things. So if you are comparing with security and cost, definitely cost is not going to change because of, with your design here. Okay, but security will be compromised if you are going and giving permission to the entire subscription. And time is again a challenge, right? If you're going and doing every single specific resource in vault, you might need additional 2 or 3 minutes, but that's fine. Okay, that is how it works actually. So trade-off between security, cost, and time. There is no relationship to cost by giving a kind of higher level of permission. Okay, so I know,
Okay.
like
Right. Got it.
lot of good questions. Okay, but yeah, you can also try and do some practice, Ganesh. You will definitely understand it. Okay, so this is still failing. I'll have to check why. Any questions on the Azure Blob and restore, Blob backup and restore? You can also try to delete the vault, sorry, the container, and you can also try to do that. Okay, so let me quickly try that also. Yeah, go
Stan,
ahead.
one more question.
Go
So
ahead.
when
Our
we
lock is there. Okay.
initiate, right? So when we initiate the, create a backup policy for the VM level. So we have just backed up the OS disk, right, which is the single disk associated to the VM.
Yeah.
So if I have multiple disks associated to the VM,
I'll come to that part.
and
So here there are
okay, it's
different
going to be
workload here. Yeah. So we are just going one by one. We have just covered only blobs so far. We are now working on Azure disks now, and we'll
manages.
be
Okay.
not just manage disk. It's just disks, and we'll be coming to virtual machine, file share. We'll see all these areas shortly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I'll see. Okay, I'll just check this shortly. Okay, restoring a desk on the secret resource group. Okay. Okay, ideally I should not have any challenges. Let's try. I'll just give it a different name. Okay, definitely it is pushing for validation. So let me go and check the permission here. So is this the same name? RG STUS prod. Okay, same thing. Let me look at the permission. Okay, there is no permission. Okay, let me try to add it manually, but I mean, this role-based access control, all these things will be discussed later. Okay, but I'll just quickly show something. Okay, I'll just
So
want
the
to give
resource group does not have the storage account
the vault
access.
does not have permission to the resource group, correct?
Okay.
You are saying the other way around, but yeah,
Okay.
storage account
Right.
backup contributor role. Okay, for the managed identity, select the member. I want to select the backup vault. I want to select this particular vault. Okay, you can also give owner permission also, so that, I mean, if you want to give, if you want to eliminate the matter of permissions, you can quickly do it this way, so that it gives you complete full control, and the vault can go and restore it. I'm just trying it out. This is not the way you should do it. Ideally, the wizard should help you to add the specific role. You can also come and add additional roles here. Like just now I added that role here, right? So you can see that MS Mars Vault has got now owner permission. Now you can validate, try to validate it. You can also try to close the wizard and come back. Sometimes it doesn't check on the fly. You might have to rerun that. Okay, this backup and restore, it is time consuming task, but you need a lot of patience. Okay, meanwhile, okay, in the interest of time, okay, let this run. I'll also quickly move on to the virtual machine now. Or no, let's complete the file share, which is a very easier one. Okay, so Azure file share backup. Okay, let's create a separate sheet for that. This is already flooded with too much of information. In this screen, I've covered backup for disk and blob.
Stan, sorry,
Yeah.
can we take a short break and then resume on this?
No, we are going to take that, and okay, we are going to take that in 5-10 minutes. Okay, I'll just initiate it. Okay, so that things are running. Okay, recovery services vault. Okay, so I'll just show you how to take a backup of the file share. Okay, so there are two different things, right? Recovery services vault and backup vault. And if you look at here, I was talking about backup vault, which can take backup of blobs, disks, and databases. Databases we have not covered it in our sessions, so I'll be showing it little later. But for now, we are jumping onto the Azure Recovery Services Vault, which can help you to take backup of virtual machine, SQL databases in Azure VM and Azure files and so on, right? And out of which I'm going to show you Azure File Share. Okay, so here, let me go and select the Azure File Share here. So you have to select where exactly your workload is. I'm selecting the Azure File Share. I'm clicking on backup, and I can select a kind of storage account which you want to take backup. And this is specifically for file share, right? So you need to select the storage account first, and if you have multiple file share, you can select the specific one you want to do. And again, the same concept applies here also. So the specific backup tool will go and check for the validation permission and so on. Okay, let me go and select the local redundant storage. It is also going and enabling lock. See, this is where cloud is very safe and secure in a way that it will not allow you to delete something. Even when I was trying to delete something, it was having that lock. That lock will get applied automatically. Okay, so let me just. Okay, so create recovery services vault is the first step. Then create backup. Select storage services account. And you have to select the specific file share. Okay, and while we are doing this, automatically Azure Recovery Services Vault or the backup agent will go and automatically create a lock on the resource based on our selection. Okay, so now you have to go and select the file share. Okay, I've got this transaction optimized file share that is there within that particular storage account. I'm selecting that. And now again, I can go and define a policy. Okay, so here you have the option to go and do a daily and hourly backup for your backup file share. So the backup frequency can be either daily or hourly. Okay, and I'm going to do a daily backup, and again I can select some specific time. Okay, so here let's do one thing. Yeah, let's go with our local time zone, India time zone, UTC plus 5:30, and I'll go with maybe 11 a.m. I'll just go for a scheduled one now. 11 a.m. Okay, and by default, your daily backup will be retained for 30 days. Default 30 days, and you can go up to let's try for 999, and then we'll get an error. Okay, it is like default is 30. It can be between 1 and 200 days. Okay, I'll go for only 1 day just for the safer side. And the other things also you can retain. Okay, you can go and retain your weekly backup for 12 weeks, and you can take a weekly backup on either of the days, like Sunday, Saturday, or whatever day you want to. You can also go and configure yearly, monthly, and so on. So here, oh sorry, I think I'm mixing. Okay, okay, daily, correct. Okay, you can also go for weekly, monthly, and other backups. So let's see how much it supports for yearly backup. 10 years, right? Let's try to give it for 30 years. Let's see what is the error we are getting. Okay, only 10 years maximum. So if you are talking to the business, you have to tell like maximum possible is 10 years for your file share backup. Okay, this is the maximum retention that you can have for your Azure file share. Okay, so now next go and create it. Create the policy. Now the backup will run at daily 11 a.m. India Standard Time, and whatever backup we are taking, it will be retained for 1 day. This is purely full backup in Azure file share. Okay, enable the backup. I know these are like a lot of things, but still you need to understand. We have to solution all the different aspects. Okay, the deployment is in progress. Okay, do we have any VMs running? Okay, we have got only one VM. I'll just go and start that. So same way, you can also go and protect the virtual machine using the recovery services vault. Okay, I'll just trigger the backup and I'll give it a break so that these things will run on the back end. Okay, so this is Azure. There are a lot of theoretical things to discuss, but I'm just showing you practical now, and then when we come back, we'll discuss on the theoretical part. Okay, this will take some time. Okay, let's not go too much for now. Let's see. So go to the backup items. Now you can see that there is one Azure storage which is categorized for Azure file backup. You can see the count here under the backup items, under the protected items. So click on that. You will be able to see the specific file share. And by default, the initial backup is pending because the schedule is at 11 a.m. At 11 a.m., the initial backup will complete. But if you want to go and trigger an instant backup, you can always go and say backup now. So backup now is instant backup. And it is giving us how much? 1 month of retention by default. I don't want to retain for 1 month. I just want to retain it for only 1 day. Okay, today is 12th, right? I want to just have it for only 1 day. So this is very important. And if you go and do a instant backup on demand backup, by default, retention is 1 month. You can change it, reduce it, or increase it, or whatever you can do it. So instant backup is on demand backup. So scheduled backup is what is generally attached to a policy. Okay, policy is again combination of the backup type, frequency, and the retention. Okay, let's wait for this. So let's refresh. So the backup is now successful, and I can just go to the storage account, go to that specific storage account, and check for the file share. Okay, are there any contents inside that? Oh my God. Okay, it's an empty folder. I'll just try to upload something quickly. Sorry about that. Azure test. I'll maybe upload a couple of files there. Okay, I'm just uploading few files for backup purpose. Okay, in the previous backup, it went empty backup. Okay, I'll go and trigger one more backup. Anyways, at 11 o'clock, it is going to have one more scheduled backup running anyways. So I'll go to the backup items. Always you have to go to the protected items list. Under the backup items, you will see which are the items that are being backed up using this particular recovery services vault. Clicking on the file share, going to the file share, backup now. It will go and trigger an instant backup. By default, it is 1 month. I'll go and reduce it to 1 day. Sorry, 1 day, and click on OK and trigger a backup. Okay, so with that, we'll go for a quick break. And when we come back, we'll see how to restore the file share, and we'll move on to discuss how to take backup of Azure Virtual Machine, how to take backup of other cloud workloads or other like what you call on-prem VMs. So how to take backup of those workloads and stuff will also be discussed after the break. So for now, we have just seen Azure manage disk backup. We have completed Azure blobs backup. We are just seeing Azure file share backup. We'll come and see how to restore that, and we'll move on to the other areas shortly. Okay. Any questions before we go for the break? Okay. If there are no questions, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, good. Let's go for
Oh,
a
you
break.
said no doubt. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I'll stop the recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so yeah, before we went to the break, we have triggered a file share backup, right? Okay, let's go and check that. Okay, we can click on this and we can go and look at the details. Okay, let's verify. Okay, it says it is last sync time is this one, 11:04 a.m. The successful backup was at 11:04 a.m. Okay, you can also check here also. If you scroll to the bottom, you also have the option to look at the backup reports, or you can also go and trigger a backup report. Okay, let me show you something. Backup jobs. So here you can see that there were multiple backups that happened. So at 11:04 a.m. also we can see that there is a backup that has got completed, right? You can go and look at the data here. And see the snapshot based backup is fully completed. Even someone was asking, right? I think Bala was asking the same question, like it's a snapshot based backup. Okay, so here, let me come back. This was the one we triggered when we went before, before the break, we took that, and the automatic backup has also happened at 11 o'clock. So there has been 3 different backup. This one we took initially, but then the content was empty. And then we took one after storing some contents. Then this is the automatic schedule backup that has happened. Okay, so now let's go and restore it. I can just go and select the content, go to the backup items, select the item that you want to restore, go here and click on file recovery, or you can also restore the entire share. Okay, there are 2 options. Okay, so when you want to restore the file share, you have the option to restore entire share, or you can also restore at the file level. Okay, so now let's go and do a file recovery. So here it is asking me which recovery point I want to select. I have got 3 recovery points. See, the first one is 0 bytes, 0 gigabyte. That time it was emptied, right? So at 10:49 it was empty. But then the next one, you see some contents there, and you can also restore to the second one or the third one based on your requirement. You can go and do that and select OK. And in general, you get two options, okay, for a file level restore. So you can either go and do the restoration in the original location, or if you want to restore it to a different location, you can also do that. Okay, original location, it's always risky, meaning sometimes it will go and override the things, and it's always risky. So not a good practice to restore it to the original location. It might overwrite issues is a challenge. But if there is a no data, you can just go and override that. I'll go and delete it first. Okay, so this is also complete now. I'll show that a little later. Okay. Okay, I'll go to the storage account. I'll go to the account which we backed up. I'll go to the file share and let me delete few files. Okay, I'll just delete some 123.txt. I'll also delete the index.html and so on. Okay, so now I want to select the specific files which I want to restore. 123.txt and index.html. Okay, click on restore. You can also restore it to a different storage account, different file share. That option is there, but I'm just showing you the file level restore, file recovery. Okay, so any questions on the file share backup and recovery options? Let's see whether the restoration is now successful. You can go and refresh. Yeah, it has come back 123 and index.html. You can also go and do the entire restore, entire share also it can be restored. Okay, so you have to select this option. Okay,
Yeah,
and if you want to
sir,
stop the backup, you can stop the backup. Yeah, go ahead.
what is the key difference for the backup vault as well as the recovery vault? Because both are backing up, right? So in this case,
No,
in
no,
backup, we only have,
no.
yeah, we are only
So,
backing up.
hmm,
Yeah, as you said, the block disk and Postgres database will be backed up in backup vault,
hmm,
and
hmm,
VMs and all in service. So what is
hmm.
the key difference between these two backup mechanisms?
So there is no duplication to answer the first question. So you cannot take the backup of the same content in different vaults. See here, the blobs, disks, and databases option is not here in recovery services vault. In backup vault, it doesn't have option to go and take SQL databases or virtual machines or SAP HANA or file shares. There is no conflict.
That's
Okay.
the question. Like, why there is two different type of backup
Yeah,
vault?
one will go away. One will go away. I mean, I think they are trying to have this is mainly intended only for backup. And then earlier, the RS vault was intended for both replication as well as the backup. There is no duplication. There is no kind of conflict here between these two solutions. Okay, so a recovery services vault is both for backup and recovery purposes. For you can also replicate the data from one data center to another data center. You can also migrate data from one data center to another data center for recovery purposes. It's all duplicating the number of backup, right? That's what we were talking about, right? So it's about protecting your data by creating more copies, right? It can be either through replication or migration or backup or whatever. But for your question, there is no conflict between backup vault and RS vault. Whoever asked the question, I must to note the name. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So coming back here, any questions on this Azure file share, backup and restore? Okay, now we are yet to see the one more thing, right? Okay, disk backup. I mean, disk restore is still pending. Okay, we have completed backup and restore is done. This is also done. We are going to look at the restoration on the managed disk. We took the backup, but there was some permission issue. I've fixed that through the IAM screen. I went to add the permissions before the break. Okay, now it is restoring. It is going to create a new disk from the backup content or the backup instance. Okay, let's give it some time. It will take a couple of minutes. Okay, so while the restore is happening, we'll also go and explore the Azure Virtual Machine Backup now. Second. Okay, so now coming to virtual machine backup, there are a lot of things that we need to understand on the virtual machine backup front. Go to recovery services vault is the only option for restoring or taking backup and restoring virtual machine related contents. I don't know why the password is. Okay, I'm having some shit. Okay, so here, let me go to the backup option. And here you have option to protect Azure related workload and on-premises related workload also. Just now we saw the option to take backup of Azure file share. Now we are going to look at the option of Azure workload and specifically virtual machine backup, right? Click on backup. It gives you two different policies. Okay, so in some organization they want to have some kind of zone resilient snapshot concept, and they want to have some kind of trusted platform module like physical level encryption and safety and security. Okay, these are the two additional things you get in the enhanced category. So there are two types of standard, there are two types of policy in virtual machine backup. The first standard will not give you zone level redundancy. Okay, and the second one, it will not give, the first one will not give zone level and the trusted platform level security. But the enhanced one, it gives you these two additional benefits. Okay, let me snip it. I don't want to type it completely. Okay, so okay, so let me just, this is the policy type that are available. And beyond that, you can go and always have your own schedule and other things defined. Okay, these are the two standard policies or two default policies available for Azure Virtual Machine Backup. Okay, the biggest limitation with Azure VM Backup that it supports only one backup a day. That is only one scheduled backup a day, to be clear. So, which means you are limited to how much RPO? How much? Am I audible?
24 hours.
24 hours, yeah, because like we are taking only one backup a day, which means automatically like we have got 24 hours in a day, so it's only 24 hours RPO. Clear? So you can restore it to the previous day content, which was taken. It may be less than 24 hours, but in general, like if it is only one backup in a day, it is 24 hours RPO, right? And let's go and create a policy. So it doesn't give you Harley option. Whereas when we were looking at file share and blobs, we were able to see that there is a Harley option there. So here with the frequency, you don't see option to take it. Harley option is not there. Okay, daily or weekly is the only option. It's not supported. So only one VM backup a day is supported as a scheduled option. I'll go with the local time zone based on the location where we are hosting. I'll go with the India time, 5:30. Chennai, 5:30. Now 11:20. I'll go for 11:30 a.m. So this is very beautiful option that Microsoft provides for the virtual machine. They give the instant store option. Instant restore, what they do is they have two tier for the vault. One is the snapshot tier, where you can go and immediately restore the backup. The other tier is the archive tier. This is for the long term. So if you are enabling instant restore, you can restore the backup immediately. You don't have to place a request, or you don't have to wait for the restore job queue and all. It immediately restores from the snapshot tier. So you can give up to, I think, 7 days is the maximum. Yeah. So okay, 5 days is the maximum it allows. So allows for 1 to 5 days. So default is 2. Instance restore for 2 days. And I can also reduce it to 1 day. Okay. So this is for the instant recovery. Instant recovery is different from the regular backup restore. This is something which will store it in the snapshot tier. It will not move to the actual long-term retention. Like in AWS, you have S3 and Glacier, right? Here you have Azure Blob Standard and Azure Blob Archive tier. Archive tier is for the long-term requirement. You can go and have daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly stuff. So yearly, you have up to, again, I think 10 years. Let's try 30 and see what is the error we are getting. Okay, it supports 30. Good. Let's say 100. Okay, 99 years is the maximum for your yearly backup. Okay, so for your virtual machine, you can have up to 99 years of backup. Okay, so don't get confused with the different things. So Azure file share maximum only 10 years, Azure VM 99 years. Some people will assume that it's the same for everything. No, it's not the same for everything. Different workload, different retention periods are available. Okay, I'll just reduce this also to maybe, let's see, I'll say 1 day. I think it supports only 7 days minimum, I guess. Yeah, see, you can have my default, the daily backup. Default is 7 days. It will be stored for 7 days minimum. I mean, default. Minimum is, like, minimum is also 7, I guess. Yeah, minimum is also 7 days. And it goes up to maximum 999 days. I think you guys are not closely watching the numbers, but anyway, so default is 30 days, minimum is 7, and maximum it can go up to 99949 days. Okay, so let me just click OK. So you can change the policy name. Okay, so just to align with your naming standard. I can go and add the virtual machine which I want to backup. So you can take the backup later also. You can also add the workload now as well. See, this is what one of you are asking question, right? If you want to just take OS disk only backup or disk only backup, go and use the backup vault rather than using the virtual machine backup type here. Oh, these many backups are there. Sorry, machines are there. Interesting. Okay, interesting. Okay, so let me try this VM 1001. Okay, 1 second. Okay, let's try that. Does not exist. I don't know where the catch is. I thought I did not have anything. Yeah, these things are not there. Okay, let me see where exactly I'm creating the location. This is like properties, East US. Okay, and that VM is in East US only, right? Okay, it is in East US. Then what's the problem? Let me try to take. You can also take backup from VM level also. You have to click on this backup. Okay, this is the vault. This is the, okay, let's go with, I'll just go with the new policy here. Let's try this. Okay, it's already 11:30. Let's quickly do this. UTC plus 5:30 is India time. Okay, 7 days. Saturday VM backup policy 1. Okay, it is allowing from here. Let's validate. Oh, it's working from here, but why it did not allow from this side? Okay, there is a catch. I'll check. Okay, it's discovering virtual machine that can be backed up on the same region. Okay, this is again a very important point, right? So your VM and the vault has to be in the same location. It cannot be in different region. Okay, it can be in different data center, but the virtual machine backup, the original backup, and the VM and the vault, RS vault, recovery services vault, has to be in the same region for backup compatibility. Okay, it cannot be in different region. Okay, now let's see. I have already triggered the backup from the other way around. I have just went to the resource and triggered the backup. Let's go and check the backup items. I should start seeing one more item on the Azure virtual machine. Earlier we were seeing one for file share, one for SQL. Now I should also see one more entry backup item count for Azure virtual machine. Yeah, that has come first. Okay, so whatever we have recently done, it will come to the top. Okay, now if I go and check that, I should start seeing the East US virtual machine here. Perfect. The initial backup is pending because we have scheduled it for 11:30. Let's wait for 3 minutes. You can also go and do an instant backup anytime for any workload. Okay, backup now is always supported. So many people get confused with this aspect. Okay, as I told you, daily one backup is what is supported as a scheduled frequency, but you can also go and take an instant backup anytime. You can, because like some people will would like to make some install some application or modify some configuration or whatever. So instant backup can be triggered anytime. Okay, that is not the scheduled backup, right? So don't get confused with the schedule and the instant. Instant is on demand. If you want to make some changes or configuration, you can go and take a backup, full backup, and come and change it. This is like at the VM level. It's a complete image level backup. Okay, Azure VM backup, and VM backup is complete VM backup. It's VM level or image level, and it's again snapshot based backup. And this one, for the first time, it is always full backup, and then subsequent is always incremental. Okay, one more thing, this is again a fabric level backup. So fabric level means the backup will be done at the storage level only. Okay, it doesn't come and impact your virtual machine. It is not going to disturb your VM's performance or whatever. It is going to take the complete VM level image from the storage to storage only. Okay, it's not going to come to your what do you call the VM level contents. It's not going to come and put some agent or whatever. There is no agent required. It's the complete Azure VM is what we are protecting here. Okay, there is no impact on the VM level. It's complete fabric level backup. It happens at the storage backend. Okay, so let's see, let's refresh, let's give it a minute. 11:29 only, right? Okay, let's not go too deep into that. Now we were also doing a disk restore, right? Let's see that. Let's go to the resource group. Let's check that resource group here. All these things. So the restored disk is available. I can use this restored disk to create a new VM if I want to. Okay, so that's the beauty of disk level restore. I can go and create a VM. I can also go and create one more snapshot and export it or import it or whatever. So you have the option to do the disk level restore. So that is also now complete. Okay, any questions for on these things so far? We are just working on this. Okay, let's go and check the schedule. I can go and look at the backup jobs. Now we should start seeing one backup is, oh, okay, it's configure is completed. So backup is not yet completed. Configure backup is different. Actual backup is different. Configure means we are configuring the schedule and all those things. So we should ideally start seeing one more backup that will get triggered at 11:30. Hopefully we have selected 11:30 a.m. Okay, let me go and check that policy. Saturday VM backup. 11:30 a.m. UTC daily. Okay, instance recovery for 2 days. Perfect. Okay. Okay, you can also check which are the items which are associated. See, if you go here, you can also I have the option called associated items, where you can see which VMs are associated to that. Okay, so let's wait for some time, and it should start. We should start seeing that. Okay, so maybe if you want to just do a manual backup also, you can just go and do it, but don't do it while the scheduled backup is happening. It will conflict things. Okay, let the backup complete. It will take a couple of minutes. And if you have some SQL contents within the Azure VM, that is also, I mean, you can also do that, but we'll see this during the database class. Next weekend, we'll be discussing database, right? So we'll be covering this during database session. Okay, so now next thing you can discuss is on the on-premises or other cloud workload.
Stan,
Yeah,
just
go
a
ahead.
quick question.
Yeah.
So the uh, the Azure VM level backup. So this is actually a image level, which means a block level backup. So the complete VM along with the disks associated, right? So so when we do the restore, the complete VM and the attached disks also will be restored. Correct?
Yeah, we'll see that. So you have multiple options when you go and restore it. So yeah, here it's like the complete image level. It takes the entire virtual machine. As you said, it's block level is some people will say. So the difference is like the earlier one, it is file level. This one is file level backup, okay, or a file share level. This one is image level, which is some people term it as block level. Both are the same. Okay, it takes the complete set of blocks. There are two type of cloning, right? One is file level cloning and block level cloning. VM level backup uses block level cloning technology, whereas file share level backup will take file level cloning technology. So I'll show you how to what are the different options that we get when you go and restore it. Yeah.
Do we have an option to restore certain files I wanted to restore from the disks attached to the VMs? Do we have options
Okay,
to
let
do it?
me check. Let us check that. So we did not get that option, right? When we took the disk backup, we did not get that
Yep.
option of let me go and check that. No, we don't have that option. Okay, let's confirm. Backup instance. Select the disk. Restore. Okay. Incremental backup. Subscription. No, it does not give you option to do a file level when you're going and doing a actual disk backup. No, it's not supported.
In either of the services, right?
Okay.
That Vault as well as the recovery services, Vault also does not have the
No, let's explore
features.
that. No, let's explore that. Let's give it a minute. Okay, so let's see why the schedule did not click off. Okay, the schedule did not click off for some reason. Okay, let's see. Let's verify that shortly. But now I'll go and take the instant backup to quickly answer the backup and restore position. So you have a file recovery option in the VM level. Okay, I'll show you that shortly. Okay, let me go and click on this one day for the instant backup. Okay, now I have triggered an instant backup, which is on demand. Okay, and again, the same policy applies. Default is 1 month retention, and we can change it to even 1 day. So it's going on now. And once after the backup is complete, you get two
So,
options. You can do the entire VM or file level also in RS Vault. So we are mixing two things. Okay. So backup vault, I told you it doesn't support file level. Now we are just exploring the VM backup. It supports the granular level. You can do the entire VM restore, or we can also do a file level restore. Go ahead, Ganesh. Yeah.
no, the minimum is 7 days, right? So like the retention, even when we create
Okay,
the instant.
that's on the frequency here. See that's on the scheduled frequency,
All right,
not for the instant. Yeah. For instant, you can have one day also.
1 day, right? Retention.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because see, people will ask us to take backup, and maybe after a couple of days they will say like everything is fine. You can go and delete the backup, right? So we can just go and see. They will say like after a couple of days, or they want to have it for 7 days or whatever. So it all depends on application team, how long they want to store the backup for the instant on-demand backup. So on-demand means someone is demanding immediately, like application team or system administration team is going to make some registry changes or configuration changes. They want to do immediate backup. So that's the instant or immediate on-demand backup. Okay, let's give it a couple of minutes. Virtual machine backups, they take some time. Okay, I can just go and look at the backup jobs here. Yeah, it's going on in progress. This is the instant backup that I did. Okay, let's do one more thing. I'll go to AWS and I'll try to create one VM in AWS. If you don't have any other cloud accounts, what you can do is you can go and create another VM in another region, and you can practice the same thing what I'm going to show now. Okay, you can go and create some VM in another location. Maybe you can see where are the other locations you have. Okay, resource group is all fine, but I'll just go and create a VM in another region, maybe North Europe. North Europe VM1. Okay, security type is fine. I'll go and select the Windows workload 2019. Oh, it doesn't support there. Huh? Okay, let me just say UK South. Okay, let's do the right way. UK South VM1. Why it doesn't support 2019 there? I'm interested. Okay, let's see. It doesn't support specific categories there. I'll check that later. Okay, so let me go and click next. You have the option to add it to a backup while you create the VM also. See, if you go to the screen here, you have the option to enable backup also. Okay, you can just go and create a new vault and take backup of that. Okay, so see, if you are going and doing the VM level backup, the VM and the backup recovery services vault should have to be in the same location, but I'm not going to do the entire VM backup. I'm going to show you the agent based backup. Okay, so that is what I'm going to show demo now. So, but also I'm just making sure you guys understand that there is a option to add VM level backup during the VM creation. So that is under your management screen. Okay, management section. Okay, I'm not going to do that now. Let's go and review and create it. Okay, this is for people who doesn't have any other cloud account, or if you have some VMware workstation or whatever in your PC, even you can try to use that also. You can take backup of any workload in AWS or GCP or any cloud, even on your premises, on your home PC also. If you want to add that and take backup, that is also supported. The method that I'm going to show you, it supports all of them. Okay, this is going to be an agent-based backup. Okay, agent-based backup of your workload. Your workload can be anywhere. It can be in your own DC, at home, other cloud, wherever. Okay, so let's see. I'll just go and create a VM. Okay, a lot of images are coming with containers.
So Stan, this is just in the VM level, right?
No, not VM level. This is agent-based backup.
No,
This is
that's
agent-based.
right. Agent based, but the backups which we are taking is actually the virtual machines, right?
No, we are now working on the other category here. We have moved on from Azure Virtual Machine, so we are now on the other workload concept.
Right. So which means any workloads can be done, not only VMs or not only file shares, right?
Yeah. It's like at the file level. Okay, I'll complete that. I'm just going to explain that shortly. Yeah. Let me just see which ones I can use. Okay, this supports all the traffic. Okay. Let me launch it. Select the March 2022 North Virginia key. Don't get confused, guys. This is just I'm creating one VM for demo testing purpose in another cloud. It can be any existing VM in your home, or even you can take backup of your own PC also, like the way I'm going to do now.
Yeah,
Okay,
Stan, in this case,
yeah.
this will back up the VM state level or the disk level?
It is going to be content level. Okay, I'll show you. It's block level backup at the contents, not a complete image backup. A complete image backup is supported for your Azure VM. Okay, that is all done. Okay, now I'm going with the other option where I'm showing you the agent-based backup. Okay, this is for the other cloud and on-premises and all those stuff.
So yeah, basically file level backups.
Yeah, kind of, yes, file level. Yeah. Even it can support system state, but yeah, it's file level and system state backup both. Okay, let me come to that part.
So Stan, so all the on-premises and other cloud, which will only the possibility file level, right? VM, it is not possible. That's what you're coming, right?
No, that's not my comment. Okay, so Azure provides you multiple solutions. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you is Azure agent-based backup or Azure solutions, I would say. The first one is Microsoft Azure agent-based backup. They call it as Microsoft Azure Recovery Services Backup, Mars Backup. Okay, which is agent-based, and you have to go and take each and every file. And we have something called Microsoft Azure Backup Server concept. They call it as MABS, MABS. And this supports multiple options: image level, system state, file level, whatever. And as you know, Microsoft has its own proprietary System Center data protection manager, right? This is their on-premises enterprise tool, like your Symantec or Tivoli or whatever, right? So it's a kind of on enterprise backup. So whatever we are talking now is the first option under this. Okay, if you are asking about in general about Azure provides you much more options, but we are starting with first option here. Okay, let's listen. Okay, maybe give me a few minutes. I'll clarify the comparison and all those things so that you get to understand more. Okay, see, after I have a VM, I'll just connect to it. Maybe this is good in size, right? I can show the demo quickly. I'll also show that for AWS also. There are a lot of contents to cover. Okay, that's why I'm just piling up things back to back. Okay, so here, if you look at the recovery services vault, the RS vault option. Okay, where it went to the very bottom. Interesting. Okay, so when you go and click on the backup option here, you get multiple options on the workload protection category, right? The RS Vault is mainly, now we have been seeing only two options: Azure Virtual Machine and Azure File Share is the two options that we have seen now. Database we have not explored. We'll see that next week. But other than Azure, we have on-premises option. Okay, this is the workload category which we are currently covering. Okay, so we are talking about Azure solution for non-Azure workloads. Okay, so if you have a non-Azure workload, like this is a VM in your on-premises, or if it is in any other cloud, okay, so the way we can take backup is by installing agent number one or using the enterprise solution backups. Okay, now I'll first show you the agent-based backup option, which is called Microsoft Azure Recovery Services Agent option. Okay, in order to do that, you have to install the agent on this particular machine. Okay, let me go and download the agent first. So on this machine, the very first step, in order to protect a non-Azure VM, you have to go and download the agent on the VM or the physical server or whatever it may be. Okay, so let me go and say I want to protect the files and folders. And if I say prepare infrastructure, it will give me the install recovery services agent option. Okay, install recovery services agent option. So this is the Mars agent which we are talking about. Okay, the Mars agent based. And this supports only Windows Server and client OS. It doesn't support Linux flavor. Okay, so this agent option will be available for files and folders only. And also it supports system state. Okay, if I go one step back, I want to protect the system state also. Still, I'll be given the option to install the agent. So the agent based will support files and folders and the system state content. If I want to do beyond that, then I have to go and I'll get a different option. See, if my protection requirement is to do a complete VMware VM at the image level, or if I want to protect the entire bare metal physical server, you will get a different option now. If I go on next, it will show me either you have to go to System Center Data Protection Manager or Azure Backup Server option. So this is different, right? If my protection is at the what do you call files and folders, or if I want to do a system state or if I want to complete bare metal backup, or if I want to do a VMware VM image level, or if I want to do an application level backup. Okay, so for those, you have to go for enterprise product, either Microsoft Azure Map Server or System Center Data Protection Manager. So these options will give you much better granular options or more options to take backup. So for this, there is a complete 5-day session from Microsoft. It's an enterprise tool, right? Like your Tivoli Storage Manager, TSM, or like your Symantec Backup. This is a enterprise product. You have to be a specialized person in backup. There is a 5-day session for that. Okay, so don't get carried away with that options for now. Let's go one by one what Azure natively supports. Okay, so now we are on this Microsoft Azure Recovery Services Agent Backup. So let me go and reduce the protection category here. I'll say only files and folders and system state. Let me prepare. It may give me option to download the agent. I'll copy the link address. I'll go into the server, paste that link, and let's download that agent. Okay, so it will download the Microsoft Azure Recovery Services Agent Installer. I'll save that. So the Mars agent installer should have to be downloaded on the machine. It can be pushed through SCCM, or it can be pushed through any method that you want to. You can also add the agent in your image also. So Mars agent installer .exe should have to be downloaded and installed. It can be pushed through your tool sets. Okay, let me run that on this machine. So when I go and install this, it will go and add the Microsoft Azure Recovery Services agent into your existing Windows Server backup. I guess many of you know about Windows Server backup, right? Within the Windows, you used to have NT backup before. Now they have changed it to Windows Server backup concept. This is the desktop application that is part of your Windows operating system to perform the backup. Earlier, we used to have something called NT backup. Now that has been replaced by Windows Server backup. And this particular agent, it's going to get embedded into your Windows Server backup. So this agent is going to add, or this installation is going to tweak the Windows Server backup option. Okay, so in order to install this, you at least need 1 GB of free space on the installing location. Generally, we go and install it on non-system drive, where we install, and we also need to have a temporary storage location for caching purpose. So this caching purpose, it's for quick backup and restore. It should always have 5% space as that of the backup size. Meaning, if you are taking 100 GB backup, you should have 5 GB free space at least on the temporary location. This is for the quick catching and quick completion of backup and restoration. Okay, you should have that. So that can be in non-system drive. So you can give the scratch partition. They call it as scratch partition. Scratch partition is the catching location. So some people call it as scratch partition. Some people call it as catching location. So both are same. Okay, and this is for the install location, install folder or location or the drive. Okay, you can select any other drive if you have, or else you can leave it. Generally, I'll give it into the D drive. The temporary storage is good for that. Okay, if you have some proxy settings, you can enter that to connect to the internet. I can also update the Azure Recovery Services agent version using the Microsoft update cycle. If I select this, automatically when I go and do a Windows update, it will also update the Recovery Services agent, which is okay. And it is also going to install the .NET Framework 4.5 and the Windows PowerShell version will be upgraded. Okay, it will also change the Visual VCC++ redistribution package, and it will also check the .NET Framework and the PowerShell. So these three things are important. Okay, to specifically say it is 4.5, .NET Framework 4.5. Okay, it will take 1 or 2 minutes to install. Meanwhile, we can also go and download the agent. Okay, so in order to register this virtual machine, in order to add this VM to that particular recovery services vault, we need credentials to do that. Okay, so this is my host name. Okay, so if I want to register this VM, I need to download that specific key. Okay, I can just say I want to download that vault credential. This vault credential is for registering that client machine to the recovery services vault. Okay, you need to have vault. This is like the private public key, right? So if I want to add this VM authenticate VM to the vault, you need the vault credential. Okay, so generally it's only 10 days. After that, you have to kind of regenerate the vault credential. It is valid only for 10 days. And you have to register that VM before 10 days, or else you have to go and regenerate the credential. Okay, let me download this. I should download this, in fact, on the other machine. But anyways, let me just copy this. It's a very small file. It's a private key file, right? I'll just copy this and place it on that VM. Okay, it's a 5 KB file. It's a credential. Inside that, you will have the private key contents to authenticate against your vault, the recovery services vault. So I can go and proceed with the registration now, and it will ask for the private key file, the vault credential file. I can just go and select the credential. It will validate and tell me which vault this machine is getting registered to, which region this machine is getting registered to, which subscription ID it is getting registered to. So all these information is available here. Okay, and if you want to encrypt your backup, this is next, again, one more additional protection. If you want to protect your backup content with encryption, so in order to encrypt and protect your data, you can also have a passphrase based protection. So without that passphrase, you cannot restore. Generally, this passphrase has to be stored in a separate key vault in Azure or any specific credential store. Okay, you have to safely store this. This is very, very important. Without that, you cannot restore. Okay, so generally it asks for 16 characters. Okay, if you want to have 16, if you want to type 16 characters, that is fine. But then you can also generate the passphrase to simplify things. Okay, it has generated a passphrase with 36 characters, which is good. And always you have to store the passphrase in a different locations in the network or in the Azure key vault. You should not store it in the same machine. If I are storing it in the same machine, if the machine crashes, the key passphrase will also be crashed. Okay, so always it's a good practice to store it in Azure key vault. Okay, let me finish it. Okay, now the machine is getting registered. So after the registration is complete, you can see that specific machine under the protected items. Here, if I go to the backup infrastructure, I will start seeing the protected servers here. So now you can see that Azure Backup Agent is showing 1. This is the old one, I guess. Okay, this is, oh, okay, UK South VM. It has come out now. Okay, so you can see the VM name here. This is the VM that we are protecting now. Okay, UK South VM1. Perfect. So this will be under the backup infrastructure. This is like a backup infrastructure based solution, right? Under that, you have the Azure Backup VM agent installed in this specific VM, UK South VM1. Okay, similarly, I'll show you how to add the backup for the non-Azure Cloud VM. I'll connect to this. So it'll ask for the password. I'll generate the password. Okay, give me a second. March 2020. Okay, decrypt password. I'll copy the password for that VM. Okay, let me connect. Okay, I can copy the agent and the credentials to this machine so that you can quickly install the agent and use the credentials to register this VM also. Okay, let me copy both of them. Okay, so now this is all done. You can close it. So I'll copy the agent. It's again 45 MB, right? Okay, that's fine. So I need the vault credential and the agent on that machine. Copy these two content. Okay, I can just go and paste it on the net desktop. Okay, let's install the agent on this AWS VM. Now I am on the AWS EC2 instance. Okay, it will take 1 or 2 minutes because we are copying from Azure cloud to AWS cloud. It will take a minute or two. Okay, let that go on the backend. Meanwhile, let's see, the Windows Server backup will also now have options to take backup to the cloud. It also supports now to online location. Online location meaning it can take backup to the Azure cloud storage. Okay, so now it has given option for files, folders, and Windows system state can be taken to Azure cloud now after the agent feature has been installed. Okay, if I go to the schedule backup here, it will give us the option to schedule the backup to the cloud now. So click on next. I can go and add the items. I can select some items from my machine. See, it also gives you option to take the entire system state. The system state everyone knows, right? Like the Active Directory, sysvol, registry, or the complex, all those things will be covered under the system state backup. Now I'm just going to take some backup of some contents here. Okay, maybe I'll just put some files here from my machine. Okay, let me see. Desktop, I'll copy some files. Okay, so let's take backup of these files under the desktop. Okay, I can select all these files. Okay, even the exe I can add, but I can also go and do a exclusion. If I want to exclude some file extensions, I can also do that. I can also go and say, I don't want to take backup of exe file. Which one? This one. I can also exclude that particular exe. Okay, if I'm just I mean, inclusion and exclusion options are there. That's the only thing you need to take away. Okay, you can include and exclude some specific files because some extension they don't want to add. You can also give star.exe or star.extension also. And here you have the option to take 3 times a backup. Okay, agent-based backup supports 3 times backup per day. So what will be the RPO? I'll not move forward until
Should be
you guys
3.
answer. 3 days, three times, right? Yeah, right. Which is 8 hours. Actually, 24 hours divided by 3 times. 3 times backup a day. You can split it into 8 hours once, right? You can configure the first backup for maybe 1 a.m. something like that, and the next backup you can configure it for 9 a.m. something like that, and the next one can be 3 here and then 6 p.m. right? By doing this, you will have backups happening every 8 hours. Is that right? Okay, 9
Right. Yep.
plus 3. Okay, yeah, right. No, this will be 5 p.m. Sorry. 9 a.m. 9 plus 3, 12, 12 plus 5. Okay, yeah. So I can just do the same way here. I can just configure it for 1 a.m. I can configure it for 9 a.m. and then 9 a.m. and I can configure it for 5 p.m. so that I have backups 8 hours. So that is the maximum allowed. Okay, you can go for a daily or weekly backup, and you can also go for monthly, yearly. So I think yearly, how much it supports? Let's say 999. Oh, 999 years supported, huh? I think 9 years is the maximum. Okay, that is huge, 10,000 years. Okay, so maximum you can store up to 9 years. I don't know whether humans will exist. Okay, so here, okay, so you have option to have default of daily backups for 180 days default. And I guess you can reduce it to minimum 7, I guess. Okay, let me give one for sample testing purpose. It's actually 7 days minimum. If I click next, it will change to 7. Okay, 7 is the minimum. And I think you can go up to 9 or 9 days, I guess. Yeah, 9 days is the maximum it supports. So 10,000, close to 10,000 days, but minimum is 7, max 9s. Okay, let me go with only 7 days. That is a minimum. Okay, you can do 2 ways of backup. Either you can use the transfer over the network, internet-based backup, online backup, or you can also do a preceding. Preceding meaning, for example, you have a very less internet bandwidth, you have a very small WAN bandwidth. You can also send the data through transfer data using physical medium. Last week we were discussing on that, right? The Azure small disk, Azure data disk, Azure data box, and all those options. You can transfer based on the size. You can also transfer using the data box disk or data box heavy and all those things based on the content. You can also transfer using Microsoft solution, or you can also send your own Microsoft recommended disk. Like you can also buy your own disk and send it, and they'll send it back again to your data center. So you can also do that. So online backup offline backup is not supported by system state. System state only supports online backup only. Very important from design aspect. So offline preceding is not supported for system state. It's supported only for files and folders. Okay, I'll do an online transfer. Now I got only very few files. Okay, click on finish. Now it will go and transfer the content that I have selected. See, when this file size is very small, see for example here, it's only very handful of content, right? How much? Only 44 MB in total, and excluding this one, it's only 4 KB, right? When the file size is very small, you might see a lot of data transfer, meaning it will not just transfer 5 KB of file, it will transfer more. The reason is it will also capture the junction point, meaning from where exactly it is located under the C, users, stan, desktop. It will store the hierarchy, it will store the UNC path, the kind of what you call the junction point, plus the permissions and all those things, right? So when the metadata is also taken, is being backed up, the size of the file or the size of the data that is over the net transferring over the network will be higher than the 5 KB. It might be 5 MB or 10 MB, something like that. But if you are transferring hundreds of GBs or hundreds of terabytes, it will reduce the content when it transfers over the network. So when you are transferring very large data or huge volumes of data, the data transfer might be very small. But to start with, since it is covering the metadata and the junction point and all those things, the permissions and stuff, it will transfer little higher data. Okay, so always some people have that doubt. Some people will ask why I'm seeing 10 MB of transfer when the file size is only 5 KB because of the junction point, the permissions, and the metadata. Right? I can just go and do a backup now because the scheduled backup will happen only at 9 a.m. and the 5 p.m. Right? So I'll go and do an instant backup. So I'll select files and folders. I want to store it for only 7 days. So today is 12th. I'll just, by default, again, it is also 1 month. So someone was asking about the throttling. Okay, so that option is here. Okay, so during the last week class, they want to throttle the data that we are transferring during the business hours and after the business hours. Sometimes the backup might run overlap during the business hours, right? If you are mentioning that this is your work during the work hours, I should only use 512 KB, and during the non-business hours, I can use complete 1000 Mbps or whatever size you want to transfer. You need to specify what is your working time. If your working time is 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 8 p.m. or 6 p.m., you can select that. So during this business hours, it will only use 512 kbps for transferring the backup content. And during the non-work hours, it will use the complete size of it. Okay, you can throttle how much data transfer can happen during the business hours, which is related to backup operation. Okay, for your backup operation, the backup data is going through the internet, right? In your internet bandwidth, how much it can utilize, that is the throttling you can enable. So here for testing purpose, you can just leave it as such. And also you can encrypt your you can change the passphrase while you're taking the backup. So those two options are there. Okay, other than the proxy is mainly for connecting to the internet, right? If you have some proxy server, you can enter the IP address and the port number. Okay, so I have updated it. Now I can just go and say backup. So if you look at the data transfer, it will be more than 5 KB. Okay, a lot of people will expect that only 5 KB will transfer, but it's not 5 KB. It is again snapshot based backup. Okay, let's wait for this to happen. Meanwhile, I'll also go and install the agent on the other machine. Okay, it did not work, but I'll download the agent. Okay, did I disable the Internet Explorer security settings? Otherwise, it will ask too much options to add into the exception. Okay, just give me a few minutes. Okay, I know like we are almost close to the completion time, but yeah, just give me a few minutes. Okay, I think we can just disable only for the public network because we are going to transfer over the public network here. Okay, let me go and download the agent. Okay, let me run it directly. Okay, Microsoft Azure Recovery Services agent setup is getting installed. Okay, click next. Okay, fine. Okay, let it get installed. So now, meanwhile, let's see what's going on with the other machine, whether the backup is already complete. Okay, sorry, I come to the same machine. Okay, job is completed. See, 22 MB. So it is only 5 KB of files, but it transferred 22 MB. Some people will question this, okay? But you need to understand that it's because of the metadata and other data. See, it says compressed and includes metadata. It's compressed, but still the size is high. That is mainly because of the junction point for permissions and other metadata. Okay, definitely the data will get compressed when we send over the internet, and when the size is huge, you'll see some reduction in size. But when you are sending very small files like 10 files, 20 files, the data transfer will be higher. So now, if I want to recover this particular Microsoft Azure Recovery Services agent backup, I have the option to click on recover data, and I can recover it on the same machine, or I can go and recover it on another server also in the network, but that should have the agent. Okay, so you can recover the data on the same server or on the other server in the network, but I need the agent. So here, let's restore it here. So it is asking us three options, whether I want to completely recover all the files and folders in the entire volume. If I have selected all files and folders in the entire volume, I can do that. Or I want to do some specific files, I can also do that. Or I can also recover the system state. I can restore the system state backup also. So here I want to do the individual files and folders. Okay, I can select the volume where I want to recover. So it is showing me which backup we have. At 643, we took one backup, right? That backup is what is by default selected. I'm selecting the restore point. If you have multiple backups, you can go and select it from the drop down, select specific date and spell it specific time to recover. Okay, the newest and the oldest backup is only this one. So if you look at here, you've got only one backup, but if you have multiple backups, you can see different timestamps. You can go and select the specific date and time, and you can click on mount. It is not restore, it is mounting concept. Mounting concept means it will go and mount the data with the restored files or with the recovered files. You can, the end user can copy the contents they need. Okay, so like it's like same thing. Okay, when you go and ask for backup team to restore, they will create a folder with some names and they will restore it there. The end user will copy the content that they need, right? Similarly here, they will allow an option to mount here. Okay, this is fine. Let's not confuse two things. Okay, so if you go here on your this PC, you'll see a new mounted drive, F drive, and within that drive, you'll see the files which you have backed up. See these files. The exe is not added because we have not included that. We have excluded that particular specific file. Otherwise, you can see the entire structure is backed up. Users, stan, desktop, and these files. That's the reason the metadata, the junction point, the hierarchy. So all those things are there. So now I can just go and copy whichever files I want. If I want to copy these two files, I can copy it and I can go and say unmount. So this particular content will be available for my maximum of 7 days. Okay, you can have this mounted until maximum of 7 days. Okay, so that's the maximum you can have. So you can have to click on extend. Extend is the option after I think, see, if you look at here, after a few hours, after maybe 7 hours or 12 hours, it will say the option will there will be another option to extend. So you can have extension up to 7 days. If your file copies keep on going, okay, you can extend it up to 7 days. Okay, now if you have copied the content, you can say unmount. So automatically it will unmount the folder that we were seeing here. So this will go off now. See, it went off. So automatically it will get unmounted. This is the method that you can go and take backup of any machines on the network. Okay, it can be in Azure or it can be in our on-premises. It can be in AWS, like I'm going to show you now. It can be anywhere in the locations. Okay, so now I have to select the vault credential. I'll register this VM, and it's the same exact procedure. Okay, I'll put it in the desktop. So if you guys are practicing, you can practice in Azure only. Okay, but if you want to practice in other cloud, if you have account, you can do that, or else you can try it in Azure. Okay, any questions on the Azure agent-based backup? The first option, Mars backup. Okay, silence. Should I take it as no? Can someone confirm?
Stan, so I
Yeah.
think the last call we were discussing about the Azure file sync, right?
Hmm,
The
hmm,
we were discussing about the syncing the data only at the
correct.
during non-business hours. So that was
Yeah,
actually not possible using the Azure file sync.
correct.
So the alternate solution is we can use this
Agent-based backup.
MOPS.
Exactly.
MOPS.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct. True. Okay, good. So, okay, let's in the interest of time, okay, I've got only 10 more minutes, so I'll kind of compare what exactly is not possible and what exactly is possible with the solutions what we are discussing now. So we have got three different solution now. So whatever we saw is Azure backup agent-based solution, which can support up to 3 backups per day. Similarly, we talked about Azure Infrastructure as a Service VM backup, which is an image level backup. It supports only 1 backup a day. Okay, and with Azure Infrastructure as a VM backup, you can take backup only of Azure VMs, right? That is only specifically Azure VMs for image level. But Azure Backup Agent, you can take any backup of any data that is on the network. It can be in AWS or it can be on premises or whatever, right? So these are all two different solutions for two different workload type. Now, what if I want to take backup of some application server or VMware virtual machine or Hyper-V virtual machine, or I want to take backup of Exchange mailboxes, or if I want to take SQL databases in my on-prem. The only option is to either use System Center DPM or Microsoft Azure Backup Server. So the main difference between these two options, the Microsoft Azure Backup Server, it can take backup to recovery services vault. It can take backup to disk. It cannot take backup to tape. Okay, tape backup is not supported in maps. If I want to take backup of the contents to the tape library or tape device, only solution that supports it is System Center DPM. Okay, that is the biggest difference between these two. And for System Center DPM, you need to have a separate server that has to be deployed either in the cloud or in your on-premises. Okay, for Microsoft Azure Backup, there is no such subscription, licensing concept. Okay, I'll explain that. So if I want to use System Center DPM, okay, so the enterprise options from Microsoft only. Okay, I'm talking about Microsoft options only, Microsoft Azure Backup Server. So these two are good options. This is like for the cloud one, cloud-based server. And you can have this one ACDPM, the media and the backup server can be in on-prem. Okay, and this one, the licensing is based on the agent type. Okay, for database or file or VM or whatever. So for based on that, you have to go and purchase the licenses for the different workload that we are going to protect. But for maps, the licensing is mainly on the Azure subscription. If you have an active Azure subscription, then you can start using map solution. You don't need licenses for each and every workload. Okay, the main difference between SCDPM, backups can be taken to disk, cloud, and tape. That is the biggest important difference. So here, the backups from the maps can be taken to either disk or cloud. Cloud refers to the vault in the cloud. It can be the backup vault or the RS vault which you are referring to. So the vault is the cloud solution, cloud backup solution. The other important thing, these two can support all the workload. Okay, meaning it can support files, it can support folders, it can support system state, it can support VMware VM, it can support Exchange mailbox, it can support database, it can support a lot of different things, physical, bare metal. Okay, the only thing that it does not support is the Oracle workload. So for Oracle, you have to use either the RMAN or the native Oracle solutions. doesn't support Oracle DB backup. Okay, both of them. Okay, but there are some minor differences as we discussed. This doesn't support tape, and this doesn't need any kind of licensing concept. Only licenses are applicable in System Center Data Protection Manager, and that is the main difference. This is an enterprise solution. You need at least 5 days, 40 hours session for completing the Azure, the System Center Data Protection Manager class. It's a 4-day session, I guess, 4 days, 6 hours. I think 24-hour session is needed for System Center DPM. It's a cloud enterprise. I mean, it's a kind of enterprise solution, right? You need to understand that deep dive, and you can learn it. But that is not something which we need to cover here. So yeah, so that is the enterprise solutions, which can also be used if you are solutioning for a customer. If they are asking for those things, they want to use a solution for covering VMware VM at the image level. If they want to take mailboxes, databases in on-prem, if they want to take physical bare metal backup and all those things, then the solution will be either Maps or ACDPM. Okay, and if they want to have Microsoft Azure based subscription and use that advantage, then they can go for Maps. And if they want to take backup into the tape library, then that is when you need to go for System Center DPM. Okay, any questions on these different options and solutions? Go ahead.
And it's just only for Windows-based systems.
No. Okay, so this supports Windows and Linux. Only the Azure Mars is limited
Mars,
for
right?
yeah, Mars is limited for Windows. Okay, Windows only. This supports Windows and Linux. Both Maps and System Center DPM both supports Windows and Linux. Yeah, good question. Okay, so yeah, it can support Windows and Linux. Yeah. And also you get, so this is the only one, Mars is the only one, it doesn't support Linux. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, even DPM, System Center DPM also is supporting it, you're saying, right?
Yeah, it supports Linux, yes. This is not application aware, meaning it cannot go and take, does not support mailboxes or databases, all those things. Okay, only it supports files and folders and system state. The first one, the Mars one.
Yeah, DPM is like a Windows default enterprise level software, right?
Microsoft default enterprise software, yes, yeah. Not Windows default.
Yes,
Windows default is Windows Server Backup, yeah. That we just saw, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so you're saying the package we can configure the Linux machine also.
Yeah. Using System Center DPM, you get agents for Linux, VMware, you get for everything. Okay, so yeah. It's again volume shadow copies based, snapshot based backup. Yeah. And this doesn't need any kind of System Center license, but this one is licensing based. You need to go and purchase license from Microsoft for the different type of workload that you need to backup. Okay, so maybe I just go through this. I'm just purposefully I'm recording the some slides here so that you can refer it back later.
Yeah.
Okay, these are some port requirements. Go ahead.
Stan, would you mind? Okay, can you share this slide which you showed, right? Because the backup part you have shared some slides, right? Can you able to share those slides for our reference?
Okay. I'll convert this into PDF. I'll upload it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, team. Any questions so far? And maybe like I'll quickly show you a couple of restorations. Maybe we were taking backup of VM, right? I can show you that quickly. So now under the protected infrastructure, I should see two VMs. One is the Azure VM, and the other one is the EC2 Amazon Linux VM. So now both of them are available. Okay, I can manage that. So now quickly, I can show you the restoration of the VM, right? So backup items. I can go and see now. You can see that there is a Azure Backup Agent 1 count. Azure VM is here, and I can go and click restore VM or file level recovery. We'll see. Okay, since Ganesh was interested in file level, I can just go and select the options here. So there are, okay, very important thing. Okay, if I go and click on the details, it gives me multiple options. whether it is an application consistent or whether it is a crash consistent or it is a file system consistent. So in general, application consistent backup will help you to recover the running databases or running Microsoft Exchange or Active Directory or whatever. So application consistent backup will work when the VM is up and running, when you take the backup. When your backup, when your VM was down and you took the backup, then it will be under the crash consistent state. Okay, even if you restore the crash consistent backup, it will go and power off restore the VM in a powered off state, you have to go and power it on. But if you go and restore the application consistent one, all the applications running on your virtual memory and all those contents live will be restored just like how the VM was there running when the backup was taken. File system is only at the file level. It will not give you the application might not come back the same way as it was before, but application consistent is the default one, and that is the preferred one for application specific workloads like Exchange or database or whatever application specific SharePoint and so on. So now if you look at here, currently it is in snapshot tier. Okay, so since you have enabled instant recovery, currently it is showing snapshot tier. After few minutes, it will also show snapshot and vault tier. I can show you tomorrow morning when we come back. Tomorrow is Sunday, right? So we'll meet up again, right? So I'll show you what is the other option that we see here. So now I can go and do either the file level recovery or the complete VM restore. There are two options. Okay, maybe I will spend 15 to 30 minutes tomorrow, okay, at the beginning, so that you get to see few more options here. And okay, so any specific questions on the different type of backups and restore that we explored? Manage disk, blobs, file shares, VMs, on-premises workload. These options we'll discover next week, or we'll discuss next week, the database and others. Yeah, go ahead.
Stan, you showed about the restore points, right? The application consistent. So can you please back to that?
Sure. 1 second. You want to go to that screen, right? Okay, 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah, Azure portal.
1 second. Okay. Sorry, I'm not okay. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah. So the restore points, it's basically it'll be used only when we do this restore VM, right? The crash consistent, it's going to be the VM into.
Yeah, true. Only for the VM restore option, these are important. Yeah.
So so the crash consistent, which means the VM is going to be in power off state.
Correct.
The file system consistent is the VM is going to be power on, but still the applications, it's not in the running state.
Which one?
So the third one, file system consistent.
Yeah. Okay, let me maybe since you are getting confused with that, I'll quickly explain that.
The reason is, for example,
I got
we
it.
get a request from application team to restore it, and they don't want the application to be running in, so they just want to have the VM to power on. So is there any features or functionality that we can get it from this restore points? Just trying to get it.
Okay, 1 minute. No, that is something. It's I'm not sure why they want a crash consistent. Okay, so crash consistent will be powered off state VM. Application consistent will be live VM with running application with its application configuration state. You will get it live. File system is mainly at the like consistent at the file level, specifically for Linux workloads. This one will be for all application Windows and Linux workload, but mostly with a running application. So most of the cases I have seen file system consistent backups are done for Linux workload, and for Windows it's mostly application consistent. Can you come back again on why you need crash consistent?
No, not the crash consistent, the file system consistent.
Oh, okay. Yeah, file system
So,
consistent. It's mainly for mostly for Linux file systems, because like those are all file system based operating system, right? So mostly files, it doesn't give you app consistent content, because the technology that Microsoft uses on the back end is actually Windows volume shadow copy concept, the VSS writer, or the snapshot based technology, volume shadow copy writer technology. It doesn't support in Linux, right? So that's the reason you cannot achieve application consistent, application consistent on a Linux operating system. Okay, so you generally have to go and install some specific custom script extension if you want to get it application consistent. But that is a kind of little tricky option. But yeah, you have some options to play around. If you want to tweak and get that done as an application consistent, you have some custom script extension for Linux, but not for all the flavors. For some specific CentOS, Ubuntu, it is supported. Okay, for some small tweaking and taking consistent backup. Okay, but Windows, it supports definitely application consistent by default. All the Windows workload, it will come app consistent with the application running status.
So again, I'm coming back to the question which I asked. When I restore the VM in restore point mentioning file system consistent, so which means once the restoration completes, the VM will be up and running, I mean restored, but the application will not be up and running, right?
Which
Just
one?
the VM.
Come in. Sorry. I was just.
Okay. The file system consistent
Okay.
restore
No.
points.
You will not get two options. Okay, either of this. Okay, for Windows, if there is running some application, by default it will go with application consistent. It is not either or. If it is a Linux system, most of the cases it will be file system consistent, unless you have configured some custom script extension and enabled application consistent backup. Otherwise, it is not either or option. It's like if you have application consistent backup, you will be able to restore with application consistency type. If your other backup is file system consistent, you will be consistent. I mean, I'll power off the VM and I'll show you the backup. Okay, so let me do that. But I'll explain more when we come back tomorrow. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I think I got it.
Yeah.
So even though the restore point set in file system, for example, it's a Linux virtual machine, let it be, right? So we are going to restore that Linux virtual machine using the restore point mentioning file system consistent. So which means the VM it's going to be restored and the VM will be up and running, and also the application will be up and running based on the custom script extension which we have defined. For example, the bootstrap enabled for the application, then obviously the application will be up and running, right?
So
exactly. I was just confused between the application consistent and the file system consistent, but I got it now.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Ganesh. Yeah, good question. Okay, very good question, and this is really needed for people at the senior level. Okay, but anyways, team, there are a lot of inputs I have given today. There are too many different things that we discussed, but the more you practice, as I tell you always, you've got 1 week time to practice. Okay, you can do one at a time. You can just practice only file share today. Tomorrow you can practice VM, agent based, and blobs. There's like you can practice one at a day. Maybe like 30 minutes is more than sufficient to practice, right? Each one. So practice will give you more clarity and more deep dive insight. Tomorrow we'll spend maybe 15 more minutes to run through all these things quickly, and then we'll move on to the recovery services concept, the replication concept. Okay, any final questions before we break?
Yes, Stan, I have a general question.
Yes,
Correct me
Ganesh.
if I'm wrong. When you create a VM, we have two options, right, in the maintenance, I guess. So create backup, and the one is disaster recovery. So
Yeah.
if I'm not wrong, disaster recovery will not take place until the machine is failover, right? So it will create a backup, and it will replicate. A synchronous replication will be done once the main machine is failed. Only then the backup will start running, right? The disaster recovery machine will start running.
There are two concepts, right? In order to protect your data, in order to do data protection, backup is there, site recovery is there. Site recovery is nothing but for your disaster recovery or your business continuity, right? This is something which we are going to discuss tomorrow. Okay, today we have just completed only backup portion, and even we have some few items to show you tomorrow on the consistency level and others. But yeah, I'll explain about the site recovery tomorrow.
Yeah, and one more general question. So, what is the difference between access tier and lifecycle? Both similar. It looks both similar, right?
What is that?
Access tier and the lifecycle, hot, cold, and archive.
Oh no, see, lifecycle management, it's a kind of option where you manage the life cycle, right? We have 2-3 different tiers where you can go and store your data to reduce the cost. If you're storing it in hot, it will be $10. If you're storing it in cool, it will be kind of $2. If you're storing it in archive tier, it is kind of maybe like a $0.5 or whatever, right? And you can definitely go and change the tiering of each and every files manually. But with lifecycle management technology or concept, you can move the files from one tier to another tier based on the criteria that you specify. After 10 days, after 100 days, after 1 year, if you want to move between these different tier, you can configure using the lifecycle management. Lifecycle management gives you the options to play around with the files between these particular, where exactly they are living, whether they are living inside hot tier, whether they are living inside cool tier. Based on that, the cost will differ. And this is for automated management of files between these tier.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, so Bala, I know you might have some questions. Okay, tomorrow I'll be happy to get your questions, and also I'll look for some input from you because you have been into the backup technology for close to 20 years now, right? So you will have a lot of insights for the team. Okay, so we'll catch up tomorrow, guys. Okay, thank you for joining, and we'll catch up on site recovery tomorrow. I'll stop the recording.
Thanks.